Welcome to a new edition of the podcast Frauen sprechen, Women Speak Out. Today an English version, and my guest is Spikey, whom I know from Twitter. Enjoy, and don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Thank you. And I welcome you, Spikey.
Hi, great to be here. Great to be here. Thanks for the invite. Much appreciated.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're my first English conversation, by the way.
Oh, wow,
So,
really?
I mean,
Your English is really good. It sounds like you talk it like most of the time.
Well, I speak English very often. That's true. But I had the pleasure of having a lovely girlfriend from England. That's where I learned quite a proper English. And ever since then, I've used my English skills quite a bit. So, but
Yeah,
you are the first podcast guest.
Wow, I feel honoured. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you are.
And my German's terrible, because when my partner, she's German, and I used to try and get her to speak German. And when we met, her kids spoke German. Yeah, her kids spoke German fluently. But she for some reason didn't want to carry it on, and I would try and carry it on, and I'd try and speak German, and her and the kids would just kill themselves laughing because it was so entertaining because I'm so bad.
Oh my God! But to be honest, German is a very, very difficult language to learn. I mean, I know from the people who learn German, and they keep saying, "I can't believe it," you know.
You think I'd be a bit better after living there for 6 years?
Yeah, you have lived here. Have you lived here in Germany?
Yeah. Hameln and Münster.
Münster.
76 in Hameln, and I think it was 86, 87 in Münster for like 3 years each time. So when I was a kid and as an adult, I met my partner in Germany.
Oh, that's how you do it. You find your partner in Germany and like take her back to the wilderness. Okay.
Yes, she's the most wonderful person in the whole of the country.
Really? Oh, that's what my partner actually said about me. She said that why are there no other good-looking and nice German women in this country?
Oh my God, that's so not true.
No, I think she was bloody right. No, really, that was in the 90s, and she moved here for love because I was here. She was so nice to move here and live with me, and now she's. I'm very, very proud of her. She's going to be a famous artist, I think. She just got she has. I don't know what this is. Oh God, now I can't think of the word. When you get money because you're so good to study? Sponsorship, that kind of thing.
It's not sponsorship. It's a scholarship.
I think that's what it's called. My goodness. So we're just talking about my good English now. There, it's going out of the window. But anyway, so she had that and studied for 2 years at the Royal Academy of Arts. And I'm so proud of her. She's good. I know that she's good. I've seen her work. Like I know her work for. I'm 61 now. Let's see, 30 years. So she was a little spring chicken at the time I met her, and oh God, she's gorgeous. I still like her. And well, anyway, so she said I'm. Yeah?
I was going to say we're close in age, because I think I'm 58. I may be 57. I
You
can't quite remember.
think?
I can never remember.
Oh, when I was younger, do you know what? I never knew whether my birthday was on the 24th or the 26th. I could never figure it out.
Oh, my partner, my partner goes mad at me because I used to have problems remembering two of her boys' birthdays, and I had so many problems that I confused her, and she can never remember which one it is. But I can, I can do all the kids' date of birth. I can do them all, and I know all their full
Oh,
names, and that's like wow.
you've got kids then?
Yeah,
How many?
my partner had five, and I had two when we met, so
You're
seven.
joking. Oh my God. Oh my
No.
God. What? Well,
It was as insane as it sounds because we also were stupid enough to get like cats and dogs as well. So
yeah,
it was
probably. Most likely. No, 7 kids. I mean,
yeah,
that is unusual anyway, but like for a lesbian relationship, that is quite
yeah.
unusual, isn't it?
Well, the thing
So,
is, when we were neighbours, I had
yeah.
no clue I was a lesbian. She had no clue that we were going to have a relationship. There's no chance that we were ever going to have relationships with women. And I turned around and
Okay.
said I turned around and said when we were friends, ha ha, can you imagine having a family reunion with your kids? Because she had five, you'll have to hire a family hall. It's like, if I have to, yes, never take the piss out of people. Whoops, sorry, never take the
No,
mickey
no,
out
you
of people.
shouldn't. Yeah, no, that's fine. So you live in a castle or something? I mean, where do you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, definitely. Yeah, Windsor Castle. We well, we've sort of like lived all over the place because we didn't have custody of the kids. There was a lot of court battles. There was a lot of
Oh my
problems with my
God.
ex-husband, with my partner's
Okay.
ex-husband, and there was like issues about the kids being in Germany and her being here, and it just the authorities in Germany treated her badly, and the authorities in England treated her badly, and they just bullied her
Mm,
mercilessly. And
yeah.
it took a good 4, perhaps even 5 years, I think, for her to get custody. She was not able to see 4 of her children for two
Oh my
years
God.
because he was in Germany with the children, and he was such a pig. He actually phoned up when we were in a flat in London. He phoned up and he said, "I'll be driving past your flat in 10 minutes. If you look out, you'll see us go past." And
Oh
he
my
wouldn't even,
God.
yeah,
Oh
yeah.
my
He
God.
he did it just to be that spiteful and nasty. And it took
Oh
her,
man.
for her to build the confidence up to just get to a point where she would even go and speak to a solicitor. It was, and yeah, they bullied her mercilessly, and they were so homophobic. The
Yeah.
We had because there was issues about him being a molester. He molested some of the children and that, but because of that, uh, we tried to get help, to say, the kids need protecting, and it was just lesbians being mean.
Mm-hmm.
It was pretty much ignored. He played the card that they're going to turn the kids against me. She was told that if the children stop wanting to see their father, she'll lose custody of them. And it was just years and years. At one point there was 12 different court dates in a 2-year period,
Oh my goodness.
and
Oh
they
my
did.
goodness.
Yeah, they don't always lead to actually a court meeting. You get to the court and then they turn around and say sometimes, "Sorry, we
Mm.
can't do it today. Go home." And sometimes these places can be like an hour and a half away. So yeah, this was back in the 90s, and I like to think, oh, ambulance. I like to think things are better now, but ever since this situation with men can be women
Mm.
and men claiming motherhood, I think it's probably even worse now.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, imagine. I mean, with you, it was plain homophobia, right?
Yeah,
Lesbophobia.
yeah,
We
100%.
all know what that looked like in the 80s and 90s. I mean, as mothers, it was even worse, of course. But now, I mean, it's not just lesbophobia; it's womanphobia, it's misogyny, and will not have any rights left if these
I honestly
laws pass.
I had no idea I mean, there's my partner's ex-husband. I knew that he was quite the bastard, pig,
Mm,
quite the pig. And but generally speaking, I've been quite lucky. My brother, I have never got on with, but I've been generally speaking relatively lucky and known some fairly okay guys.
mm,
But I'm shocked. I was honestly shocked about how badly behaved men have become because I
mm.
didn't seem to see too much of it in my life. And
Yeah,
I
that's
lived
the
on
thing, isn't
shitty,
it?
rough. I lived on some really rough, on a really rough
Mm,
estate. The estate we lived on there, it got so bad that the the taxi drivers wouldn't come onto the estate because they were fed up of getting robbed and mugged. And
oh my God.
also, it ended up, and I think this happened just after we left, that the actual ambulances wouldn't go onto the estate without a police escort.
Jeez. Where
So
was that?
this was a city in the Midlands. I'm not going to shout the city
Midlands.
out,
Yeah, no,
but
it's okay. But Midlands, yeah, okay.
yeah, well, it's not quite up at the Midlands, but nearly. But the
Yeah.
other thing is I had two friends came to visit us. They popped to the shop before they came in. Came out, their car was stolen. Another friend
Mm,
came to visit, spent the night, went back out the next day to go to work. They were actually due back at something or other. They went out to their car and their windscreen had been stolen.
my goodness. Oh,
I
that
thought,
sounds.
who
Oh my
steals a
God, that sounds horrible. That's the kind of thing you expect from some American rundown city, wouldn't you? I mean,
Oh,
that doesn't
it was
sound like England.
yeah, and this was God. This was in the 90s. I mean, there was these lasses that lived out the back of us. They'd
Yeah.
been homeless, single mums, and they were waiting for
Mm,
accommodation. The council didn't come up with anything. Where they were living in this sort of like hostel accommodation was terrible. So they clubbed together and rented a house between themselves. And they got picked on by a group of young lads, like using air guns and firing nails at their doors and throwing eggs at their house. And they phoned the police. And 3 days later, at 11:30, they turn up at night. Yeah, and it's like young coppers. This is because it's young lasses, single mums, uh, and the kids did it. And I went out there one night and I took a pretend gun and a phone, made out I was talking to the police. With one of those
mm.
old aerial phones. It was a house phone, but it was like they didn't know that. Made out I was talking to the police, and I said, I took the nail gun off one of the kids, or the air gun with the nail thing. I took that off him,
My goodness.
and I said, I pretending I'm having I said, is that the police on my pretend phone conversation? I said, yeah, and I've got my fake gun with me, and I'm like, yeah, I'd like to report a shooting, please. Yeah, in about 5 minutes. Okay, put the phone down, and I lifted my fake gun. I didn't point it at anybody, but I just showed that I
Uh,
had it. The
yeah.
kids left it.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Okay, and
When you
then
live
they
when
ran
you live
off.
in yeah, when you live in a crazy place like that, the best thing you
Yeah,
can do is let people believe or let people think that they don't know how far you will go because
yeah,
it's whose level of crazy is the worst, and it's all bluff.
exactly. Oh
Yeah,
my
so
God.
well,
Oh,
this
oh
is
my
why
God.
I
I mean, I can't believe what I've gotten into here. This is crazy shite. My
Mhm.
goodness. So this
It,
is your real life experience.
yeah,
Tell us
I lived
more.
well. This estate that we lived on was the first ASBO, which is it's a some sort of social order thing that they were putting on teenagers about antisocial behaviour. It's an antisocial behaviour order, and one of the first ones to be issued in England was issued on our estate for this. Yeah, for this kid that was bad. That I'd also had a run in with him and his family over bullying the kids. So this is why I'm so what's his name about language and behaviour because some of those people that had the worst language, you know what, people on that estate, they were also some of the most helpful people. And my experience of sort of like being in council accommodation a couple of times and being on poor estates is that the people that really have the least give the most. Uh, and that level of when we moved into our first flat, it was a council flat in London, and we had nothing. The first night we slept, and my partner had her eldest daughter because she wasn't her ex's, and my partner and I slept on a pile of coats, and we did the same for our little one, but there was like a little bit of a bedroll thing that we had in the car, and that was our first night in our first flat, and we'd been through sort of like hostel accommodation, and they frightened themselves so much that they realised the council realises that they dismissed us and treated us really badly, and then they put us in this really nice B&B. It was lovely. And then, like within 3 weeks of that, we had a flat because they were frightened that we were going to do something.
Okay.
Because
My goodness.
yeah, so the sort of the fighting the institutions, knowing what it's like to need those institutions to be there for you, feeling the dismissive way in which you get treated, that you're worthless because you can't make it work. It's quite this is, I think, why I can get quite protective towards groups, because if you knew this social safety net we've got is to get the help, to get the aid, it's absolutely soul destroying. It's not what people imagine, that we've got this social safety net that you just walk up to and say, "Give me this," and that they hand out money, and it's not. It's absolutely soul destroying, and you know, the people in and I worked for that for our department and our benefits agency people. I worked for them. I know what it's like from the inside, from what people say about people on benefits.
Oh my goodness. So you were on benefits when you lived in that place in
In
London.
London, well, I also had a car crash, uh, and had like my leg in full plaster for a few months and quite a few stitches. And so, oh, this is a whole story about how come my parents ended up giving the keys to my actual privately rented flat back to the landlord while I was in hospital.
What?
There's a whole thing about yeah, there's a whole thing about that. Honestly,
Okay.
there's so many different stories and different things that when we look back now,
Yeah.
we're like, wow, I can't believe it was that bad. How terrible was that?
Yeah.
And
Sounds like
nowadays,
it.
it was, but at the time, you just make the most of it. You kind of like you just keep wading through. You and I don't know whether it's because you've got well, it's because you're with the person you love. That's another thing. If you're with the person that you love, you've got energy together for a common goal, which is to create a home for yourselves. And I think the what's his name of being lucky that we're together, because no, you can imagine what it was like. She was married to a soldier. I was married to a soldier. It was a very homophobic environment, and it the kind of like getting kicked out of given 5 days to leave Germany because her husband outed us to the MPs, to the military police after he attacked me. So, oh yeah,
Oh my
our
God.
story ticks every box you could possibly imagine. It is endless.
Why
I
don't
mean,
you write a book about it?
I haven't. I say stuff like that every now and then, and I think, well, I just haven't got the patience. And it's quite jumbled when you try and work it out. You
No,
think
but
about all the things.
just carry on talking.
Yeah,
I will not stop you. You just start. talking about anything you would like to
I
talk
just
about.
be rambling on. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, that's fine.
but to a
Otherwise, I do
degree.
that.
But her ex-husband has still been so many problems that we moved into this house nearly 10 years ago, and he wouldn't have had this address ever there. And so what he did about 2 years, perhaps nearly 3 years ago, he went into my partner's youngest son's sat nav to find our address when his youngest son's car was there. He got our address from the sat nav. Oh yeah, all these years on, there he's still at it. He's used a private detective to track me down before.
My goodness. In the recent years,
No, this was in the noughties, I think. Yeah,
but
because I
now,
took
if he contacted you again now, I mean, or did I get that wrong?
no, no,
He's
he
still
just
at it at the moment.
no, no,
Oh, okay.
he just it's the threat, I think, and he likes to he wants to have the information, and he's not managed to have a he ended up going to prison for beating a woman up. There's all sorts of things, like a string of women that he has a relationship with and then they disappear kind of thing. So that yeah, there's all sorts of issues. I would love to see
He's a nice guy, really. I
oh
mean,
yeah, lovely, yeah.
that's one
And
of
and
those German soldiers who beat up women and end up in jail. I mean, that is hard to do. That is hard to do, to get into jail as, like convicted as a man in Germany.
yeah.
I find that quite difficult to achieve. So, my
Well,
goodness.
that bloke that punched the woman in Aberdeen in the face, she was in her 50s, he was in his 20s, and he got let off with a warning. And that's another. I mean, there's the legal thing. I grew up in a world where if a man punched a woman, he was very likely to get punched by another man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Or two.
yeah, or two, yeah, the
Yeah.
men would sort that sort of thing out. And I also grew up because I grew up in the military, and I had a lot of fights. You know, with I was quite boisterous. Often got taken for a little lad, and I when I was a toddler, my brother couldn't say sister, so he called me sissy, and he was a year and a half older than me. Apparently, yeah, because he couldn't say sister. But apparently,
Yeah.
when I was 4 years old, I apparently said. My name's not Sissy, my name's blah blah, and I'm not going to answer to Sissy. And I just refuse to answer to it. And I've thought about that a lot, and I've thought about me, and what caused me to suddenly say that after being all right with it. And I can almost guarantee you there was some little boy in the playground that was crying about something or was scared, and the other kids would have called him a sissy. And I would have thought to myself, are they saying I'm a scaredy cat? Well, I'm not a scaredy cat. I'm not a sissy. I just know it.
Yeah. Probably. Probably. All right.
And
So you had, yeah, sorry. Carry on.
I was going to say, it's kind of like I grew up fighting my brother. I grew up fighting boys. So the what's his name when somebody tries to intimidate me because I'm only like 5'3" and a bit and not very heavy. Yeah, I'm like pretty much been. I mean, most of my life I was about 7.5 stone. I'm 8 stone now. But
Well, that
if
doesn't
people,
tell me anything. I don't know
and I'm
those
just sort of like
figures.
small, yeah, small. Oh, about 50 kilos.
All right. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, and my brother would use his size to try and intimidate me and get me to say what he wanted me to say, kind of thing. And it doesn't intimidate me, it just makes me angry. So it's kind of like when people try to do that, it has the opposite effect on me. So quite a few boys have decided that they wanted to fight me, and I fought back. and it's that's been the story of my life pretty much, fighting back.
Surprise, surprise. So,
Yeah,
how do we imagine this life as a child? In the military, whatever that means. Did you live with your father or mother in the military, and they lived in a what's it called?
yeah.
Um,
Not on the
barracks,
camp.
or
We
on the
didn't live
camp?
in
Yeah.
barracks. That the Americans have bases, and they often have their houses inside the bases, and they'll have all their shops. With the English, they have the camps, and the camps often has the shop, the main, like the NAFI, which is a main army shopping thing. And they'll have we live amongst the sort of like the rest of the population, but in groups of like there was a big estate that had a lot of block of flats, and then there was a smaller area that had blocks of flats, but all the housing was segregated according to rank. So if you're a private, you'd often be living on a bigger estate in flats, and corporals, the lower ranks, would sort of like live in often in flats, and then I think it was like corporal, or we had like lance sergeant and sergeants. They would get closer to camp and have higher incomes. So the stratification of income meant that where people lived, they were all in the same boat. Nobody had more than anybody else. And that in its own, I think, creates a community of equals, because no, everybody's in the same boat. They've got the same amount of disposable income. No one person's better than the other. They're all doing the same job in the area that they live. And then like your sergeants and that would often live closer to camp, and they'd live in houses, and they'd have sort of like slightly better furniture supplied than the lower ranks would get. And the officers, they lived in big houses with big gardens and much
I
nicer
can just see
furniture.
it. Yeah,
Yep.
I can
And
see
another
this hierarchy, isn't it? Oh my God.
Well, the hierarchy extends to the family, because what happens if as a military child, let's say if I got in trouble with the German police in Germany, they would contact the barracks, and my father's boss would be called. If I had done something bad, my father could be in trouble, and if he didn't take it underhand, that could mean that he could end up getting fined for not taking care of his responsibilities there,
Oh,
which would
so that
then
must
put.
have been tough.
Yeah, well, and following on from that, so the mother's position in that is she keeps the kids under control because it's her housekeeping money. And when we were, this happened twice. When we were outed, we were told that we weren't allowed to be together on any military soil. And friends of ours let us stay at their flat. These are military friends, and let us stay at their flat for a night. And he comes home the next day and he says, I'm sorry, but they've told me that if I let you stay here another night, they're going to fine me 1,000 Deutschmarks. So we were sort of like in this situation, we had literally nowhere to stay, and it took people to have guts to stand up, and there was quite a few people that did have guts, and anyone that didn't, I had my complete understanding for. But then later on, when we were back in England, some of our friends got posted back to the UK and in London, and I was staying with a friend, and my partner and I both sort of like were in the house, and she had her eldest daughter, and that's where we were staying. And her husband was actually in the first Gulf at the time,
Oh,
and
okay.
he got a letter while he was in the Gulf about us staying in the military house.
You're kidding.
Yeah, and his attitude, he was very much, well, they can get lost, you can stay there. Yeah.
No.
So, but the army then sort of like tried to evict us from the house, and that's how come the council kind of like ended up having to help us, because everybody had messed up so badly. It is. I mean, I look
How
back on
old?
now and we laugh.
How old were you then? You two?
25, 26.
Okay, but you lived that long in. I mean, so you. I can't figure this out now. So you were living there as a child with your family, but at the
Yeah.
age of 26, you don't live with your
No,
parents, do you?
no, no, no. When I lived there with my father was in the army. I was in Germany initially as a child between the ages of, I think, 10 to 14-ish. No, actually 11 to 14-ish. No, yeah, 11, somewhere around there anyway. And then my father, he got his posting back to the UK, partially, and then he was coming up for coming out of the army after doing 22 years, and he did not want me to mix with soldiers. So he decided rather than stay in the army, he'd get out. And then I babysat for a friend, and some soldiers came back with her, and that is how come I met my ex-husband. I was 16. So my dad was very unhappy.
Mm, I believe that. Well, he knows their ways, doesn't he? Oh my God. Okay. So, well, that is very interesting. That is
Right,
very
so then
interesting.
so then I marry him when I'm, I don't know, I think I was like 18, 19.
Gee, a
And, you
baby.
know, yeah, still a baby. And
Mm.
then we get posted to Germany. Actually, out of our 7 kids, only one was born in the UK. And my youngest daughter was born there, and that's how come when I was married to my husband, we went to Germany, and my partner now was a neighbour. We were both married wives, both married to soldiers, both clueless that we could love a woman.
Oh my God. Okay.
And the funny thing was, I thought it was just this accident that we ended up kissing. Something, quite horrendous had happened, and it was very emotional. And we were sort of like giving each other a hug. And as we pulled away, our lips touched, and it was like bang on kiss after that. And I always remember having this feeling that it's completely by accident. But absolutely years later, my partner told me that she'd had all these butterflies about me and all these funny feelings, and I had no clue at the time. I was like, "You loved me, you loved me."
Oh my God. So, so your nasty husbands left you, or you left them, and
I left them. My ex-husband is one of the good ones. He was a good husband, a good man. It wasn't his fault I turned out to be a lesbian. I had no clue, and he's a good dad. Yeah, actually he's sometimes a bit of a useless dad because his daughters just wind him around their little fingers. But he's the sort of dad every daughter wants.
so he's still in the game.
Oh
He's
yeah, very
showing up.
much.
He's like
Well,
a partner,
they're I
kind of
mean,
in the
our young
family.
yeah, our youngest kid is like 33, 32, 33. So, but yeah, he's a really good supportive. He remarried. She's a lovely woman. Yeah. So yeah, from that point of view, everything was good. But my partner's ex-husband, and I think there's a lot that happens a lot with the ownership of children. It, it's it's not about whether it's not about him loving his kids. It's about him owning them and them being his. And he did everything he could to weaponize those kids. And well, and I've seen this in other people's situations, and I sometimes wonder how much more men bother with their kids if they have to pay child maintenance. If they think they're going to have to pay child maintenance, then they're going to be a lot more interested in custody. There weren't all these men all these years ago whinging about wanting custody of their kids. Most of them just ran off and left them. But then you bring this men have to pay for their children, and all of a sudden we've got all these men interested in having custody of their children. Is it the same over there?
I don't know. I haven't followed that. I just know that. if they want them, they will. Yeah, they move heaven and earth to achieve it. Because, and there are many. Apparently, there are many men's rights activists who are into that kind of thing, and they just want their kids, the hand on their kids, even if I suspect, even if they don't like them, basically, if they don't want them, it's just a power game. Like the mother must not win. That
Yeah,
kind of
it's the
attitude.
winning. It's the winning
Yeah,
that matters to them. Yeah,
yeah.
ownership and
With
winning.
most
And
things, isn't it?
yeah, territory. That's my territory. One of the things that my ex-husband said to me is that, at least with me having been with another woman rather than having been with another man, he's never had to worry or consider or listen to his daughters call another man dad. And for him to think about that and for that to be a thing, and I can imagine it would be hard. Now, my daughters call my ex-husband's wife mum, and I'm pleased. I'm pleased. It's kind of like if your daughters are calling two people or three people mum, yeah, they've got women to go. They've got women to go to no matter what. Yeah, and it's the children that decided to call her mum. So it's the more to me, the more mums a child has, the better off they are. Having a dad, if he's a good man, is a good thing. But having like lots of females around raising children, for me, is the best for children.
Oh, I believe that.
It was another thing,
Absolutely.
sort of like living in the flats in Germany, wherever we lived, and this was growing up, and I saw it in my own life as an adult in the military. The the men would go off on exercise to go and play with their guns and what have you. And initially, the new wives, the new mums, they would be very sad and very upset about their husbands going away. And all the wives would sort of like, we'd all come together, look out for each other. We'd have card games, coffee mornings, sit out the back with the kids with the paddling pools, and we'd all be together looking out for each other. After about, I don't know, 18 months of these young people being married, they were quite glad to see the back of their husbands to go off on exercise because we had such a good time and things were so
Yeah.
easy.
I think I think you said something like that in a space before, or some other woman did, but that sounds familiar.
But there's that sort of like one of the things that I'm one of the women that so glad that women can go out to work and have careers. I trained as a mechanic. I started out as a mechanic when I was 16. And so I've worked in some environments at a young age, but women, this idea that all mothers want to be able to, bed down this career and have it all. Yeah, some mothers may, but some mums actually want to stay at home and raise their kids. And that is frowned upon in our society. A woman that doesn't have a career, a woman that doesn't go out to work is somehow seen as less free. And but it's those women that stayed at home that my mum always worked, but my mum had respect for these women, and we called these women that stayed at home auntie. And when I got home from school, we had a bit of a key hanging from the letterbox. You could see the key hanging from the letterbox outside, so anybody could rob our house. And you get the key out, let yourself in to go and get changed after school, and then go back out to play. And you'd let your neighbour, who you'd often call auntie, yeah, you'd knock on their door and let them know, and you'd let them know where you're going off to play. And that was them looking out for me. That wasn't some sort of like mega financial arrangement. It was just what happened. Everybody naturally, the women all looked out for each other and each other's kids. And that, when I lived on that was my norm. I'd felt it in civic, I'd felt it growing up in the military. I'd seen it, and when my father was a prison officer, that again, tied housing. There was an estate that everybody lived on, and all the houses were owned by the prison. And the, so again, it's tied housing, but there's this community. All the men work together. Everybody knows each other, and there's women there. And if there's a problem and your mum's not at home, there's always someone that is. And that woman community that benefited children and women it feels like it's been stripped away because of I don't I don't know, like when I lived on the rough estate, there was little of that. There was little ability to trust each other 100% the way we could in the military, and it was very, there wasn't a community as such. I mean, we had a little bit of a community ourselves, but there wasn't really generally much of a community on the estate of what I would call an ordinary, normal, supportive community. That was the sort of thing that I experienced. But again, I grew up in the military, so I never saw disability. I never saw old age. I never saw um, children with special that needed special medical care or anything like that. So because you don't see this growing up, you have a tendency to grow up with this sort of like can-do attitude. The assumption that if you can do it, anybody can do it.
Oh yes. Okay, I see. Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah. And the I think part of that is what also kept me going, because it didn't dawn on me that I wouldn't be able to not do things, that I wouldn't be able to, find a flat, get a job, and survive. That I wouldn't be, it didn't dawn on me that I might struggle to support our family. That my partner and I would struggle to support it. It was just, I didn't have those doubts at all, which you could say is like bloody immature and stupid.
Yeah,
But
you could, couldn't you?
well, you could. That's it. But and it and it definitely was. But I didn't even think about that. But kind of then you sort of like you just keep plugging away and you just keep going at it and going at it and going at it, and eventually you've done it for 30 years.
Yeah.
You know,
Weird, isn't it? Yeah.
well, if anybody had told me my life would have gone that way,
Mm-hmm.
I would never have believed them. It's you know, my life was very much on rails. I was married, my husband was this, I was going to do this, da 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 da. And I was, I was the to some degree the golden child because I did the right things. My husband was, had a career in the army. My brother wasn't great, so I was to some degree at sometimes like the favoured one because I did things right, and it
The
broke
good
my
girl.
parents. Yeah, it absolutely destroyed my parents.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, when I left my husband, that was not good at all. But I also knew that they would be upset. I knew my mother would be somewhat angry, and I expected to be disowned. So when it didn't have the impact on me. It wasn't a shock. I knew what the rules were. I knew what the rules were.
Sometimes, even if you think about that could happen, if it really happens, it's a shock. So for you, you were prepared and
Yeah, I knew it would happen.
it was
I
okay.
know.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, no, my mum actually said to me on the phone, "Yeah, your brother says if you set foot within a so many mile radius of London, he's going to kick your head in."
What? What? I'm sorry. What for being lesbian or something else?
For being lesbian, for leaving my husband and children. That's the structure. That's the structure that my brother saw himself in my life. he thought that he had the right to say that, and my mother thought it was reasonable that he would say that, and she used it as a threat to me to try and make me stay with my husband.
That's what patriarchy does to us, isn't it?
Well, again,
That
yeah, the
women, like
structure.
your mother could. The structure is like that, and the women, how do you say that?
They
Do
uphold it.
anything to support. Yes, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
uphold it.
yeah. And my
You.
mother had a terrible life herself at times. Her first husband was awful to her. She lost custody of 5 children, two that ended up being adopted out. And so he'd sort of like, she only had one eye herself. She only had one eye. She'd lost it when she was a kid. He used to threaten to knock her other eye out, and he'd beat her, and he'd kick her. And still, she never got custody of the kids. He had the house, he owned it. He'd been left the house by his mother, so he had all the assets, he had all the money. And this was back in the, I don't know, this was back in what must have been the 50s, 50s that she was going through that. So she had a crappy time of it. But one of the things I love, I mean, my mum's a formidable woman, and she's done some things that aren't wonderful, but I have a great deal of admiration and respect for some of the things that she did do. This being one of
Mhm.
them. Very early on in her marriage with my father was drunk, and she was angry with him. She told me this. I didn't witness this. Uh, she was angry with him because of the state he was in. He was so drunk. He was ridiculously drunk, and he sort of like just swung out at her with the back of his hand and hit
Mhm.
her in the head, yeah, across the eye. So she punched him straight in the face and decked him.
Oh, brilliant! Thank you,
Yeah.
mommy.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I absolutely love. And she said that was the last time he ever raised a hand to me. The first and last, she said. Yeah, and just that, it's kind of,
They don't expect it, do they?
yeah,
They
and
bloody
it laid
don't
him out.
expect it.
Yeah,
My
and it's the
God.
fact that this is a big, strong, hairy paratrooper, and she laid him out. I love that, and
Oh, I
I
do.
want I want women to be able to be proud of that, not to feel shame because they lost their temper and decked a bloke.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't, I want women to be able to embrace their rage,
yeah.
to not have to be fearful of being a whole human being that has the right to rage after, the way
Well,
they've been
to
treated.
defend yourself, that's the
Yeah.
thing. I mean, she's not raging for no reason.
No,
She
but
doesn't
that
go
rage,
around decking people. It's
no,
like-
but it's the rage that enables you to do it. You can't just calmly hit someone. Yeah, you have to be able to allow your anger to come forth to be able to do that sort of stuff.
Oh,
So
that's an
I have,
interesting thought.
well, all the things, we've got all these labels for all these behaviours,
Yeah.
and has it improved anybody's life?
Nah.
Yeah, it's just that people throw labels, and my
It's actually
attitude is,
getting more difficult with every label there is because you
yeah,
can't be anymore.
yeah, and it's the way the labels are used. There's no normal behaviour anymore. Everything is everything is a personality disorder, or some other label. So what they're saying is, um, there's this narrower definition of what is allowable behaviour, yet we've got the pride marches that can sexualise everything they want and be as crude and ridiculous and disgusting as they so please. But we've also got this absolute policing of, I believe, more frequently, young women's behaviours, and very much young mums have so much pressure on them to, if their child goes to school, if that child is too chatty, too fidgety, a bit stroppy, um, all sorts of other things that is then a mother's fail. Because what they want from your child is for your child to sit in this chair, be quiet, and be easy to manage. That's what they want from your child. They want your child to be easy for them to manage. And it's they use this over mothers, over women. And I would not be able to be a parent today. I think it would create the mental illnesses
Oh, I
that,
think it does.
yeah,
And it
this is
used to
why
do to create
it's
mental
like,
illnesses.
well, one of my things is that the mums that have, as they say, sort of like got their trans kids, I still, I'm not going to blame the mums. I'm not going to blame them, because how hard it is to go against the flow of when you're a mum of young kids, especially if you're a single mum as well, is virtually impossible, because you don't know what's right 100% yourself. Kind of like, you just make it up. Your parenting is just making it up as you go along half the time. But you're never 100%, when you're young, you're never 100% sure about anything. Well, when you're old, you never are either.
Exactly.
At least when
It
you're
gets
old,
a
you know you're
bit
not.
easier.
Yeah.
Exactly.
To,
That's the
yeah.
thing. You know, oh, you might be wrong. And
Yeah.
oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah,
So
but
these young
I
mums,
yeah,
go on.
sorry, carry on. No, no,
No,
you go.
I was just going to say about these young mums. I can't condemn them. I can't. Yes, I can get a bit cross about it every now and then, but ultimately, I think you have a baby, and to some degree, it's true. The freedom is over. The freedom to think your own thoughts. You haven't got the freedom to raise the child the way you wish to raise it. That's a lie. You're massively controlled to raise your child so it's easy to manage, and somehow benefits the state. And my attitude towards that is, if they want women to raise children, so who are we raising children for? Am I raising my children for me, for myself, for my benefit, or am I raising my children to benefit the state? Now, we'll raise our children so they can, try to have happy lives, go on, and what's his name. But if you're trying to just constantly make your child easier for other people to manage, you're not going to help them develop anything. They're going to be just sit there waiting to be told what to do. Yeah. I have a lot of it. The modern society. There's good things about it, like this, talking to you, Twitter Spaces. That's another thing. As much as the trans debate has caused so many problems, I absolutely love that it's bringing all these women together.
That's
Uh,
nice, isn't it? But I mean, it took a while for us too. The talking now, it took like 2 to 3 years now. Like get getting doing the spaces, women listening, doing things, talking about things, da, 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 da. And now we're here. But it takes a long time.
yeah, and there's a lot of things. It's like Twitter can be quite difficult because it's
Yeah.
spaces. I think I can't say that word, anonymousness. I can never say it.
Anonymity.
Anonymity.
Whatever, we know what you're
Yeah,
talking
that
about.
word. Yeah, that word.
That
I
word.
think I think that's a really good thing for a lot of women, because it gives them the freedom to speak their mind. And
Yeah.
we've had these people like recording and stuff and putting it up elsewhere. And for the likes of me, that's quite gobby and cocky and full of myself, it's not such a bad
Uh,
thing, and I can get on with it. But for the people that are shyer, and also I don't have to worry about my children.
yeah.
My house. I haven't got my children living in my house. That
Mm.
I don't have to worry about those
And
sorts of
they're
things.
adults, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
I
proper
wouldn't be
adults.
here if we had our children living with us. I wouldn't be active online. at all. In fact, that was another thing. I loved technology, the internet. I thought it was all fantastic. But because of my partner's ex-husband, I was always too frightened to go too far. And the few times that I did, it always turned out to be a mistake because he got hold of some information. Uh, so, so I'm then putting other people in my social network in danger.
It's so
Uh,
horrible, isn't it? When you
but
think
it's a
about it.
thing women think about. Women think about these things. Women are, that they will think about, and it will silence us because we try to protect those in our networks, the women and the girls in our networks, from these men, which gives, like I said, the only reason I can be here is because my kids are grown up. I haven't got to worry about that man and what he can do to the kids. They're all grown up.
Yeah.
But for the people that are most impacted by the transgender ideology, it is I could not cope. My mental health would have been on the floor. I would be all over the place. I'd be losing my crap everywhere because
Hmm.
I wouldn't be able to the social what is it they call it oh, I can't remember what they no, where you have to sort of like you've got your mind telling you this and what you really believe, and then you've got to act in this way, and you've got to try and navigate that when you've got, like, say, an ex-husband that wants custody of the kids. So if you've got an ex-husband now that wants custody of your kids, and you're online saying men shouldn't be women, men are never women, yeah, that could be something that an ex-husband or a wily solicitor or barrister, yeah, might choose to put in court papers to make, you're a right-wing bigot, so you shouldn't have the children. And the fact that we've had a position where children are more likely to be handed over to the parent that will happily transition the child than the parent that's against it, that's a shock.
It's. I don't know. I'm speechless sometimes. I don't know what to say about that because that's exactly what's beginning to happen. And when we get, if we get this um, self ID, um, I don't. I can't even think of all the repercussions that will have. For for mothers and for women who want to speak, just voice their opinions and um,
Uh, I
it's,
mean, look at us. Yeah,
yeah.
we're now. I think you said you were like 61. I'm
I'm
in my late
turning
50s.
62 in 2 months. Yeah.
And I'm in my late 60s. My partner's just coming up to 65. In my late 50s, yeah, I'm in my late 50s. My partner's coming up to 65, and we're looking at the healthcare scenario right now. Uh, my partner hasn't gone for or wouldn't go. She went for a last screening, but now she wouldn't if she had to go for a breast screening or anything else. And I'd be the same. Nope, not coming anywhere near you. Yeah, and there are women everywhere that are gonna avoid going for health screening. Whether it's breast checks, whether it's anything that might involve any sort of intimate check on your body. Women will rather than confront and have a fight or say anything, they'll just try to avoid it. Because if you phone up and say to the doctor, I'm not happy with that, then you're outing yourself as someone that could be targeted by other people in your doctor's office that think you're a bigot or a right wing whatever. So, and anyone that's had much to do with the benefit system, especially if you've sort of like been seen as single mum category, they will have felt this kind of this judgment, this not not being a decent human being kind of thing because you're either on benefits or you're a single mum. Many of them would have felt that judgment to some degree, and so the fear of then standing up and saying I don't agree with this thing, they know they'd be putting themselves in a position to make their life even harder, because your doctor might decide that it's time for you to change your medication if you have medication, if you have painkillers. They all sorts of things that where people, they're in their job, they're professionals, they think they're being professional, they don't think they have biases, but they do, and they come into play. We recently in this country had the banking thing, all the bank accounts, all the some of the bank companies closing down people's bank accounts because of their political views.
We
It,
what?
it,
What? So they could close down my bank account for saying trans women are men.
well, you heard, you know that. I mean, I'm not fond of this man, Nigel Farage, in this country. He's not a pleasant man. Well, actually, he's got some unpleasant opinions. He's who he is. But his bank account, he was told that they want to close his bank account, and the whole hoo-ha around it. The CEO of the banking group, at a dinner where there was a BBC reporter, told the BBC reporter that they'd closed his bank account because he didn't have enough wealth, because it was a wealthy person's bank, Coots or something it's called, and they closed the bank. And she said to this BBC reporter, and he then went and reported on BBC, yeah, that this man's bank was closed because he didn't have the wealth. Yeah, that's a CEO talking about personal data of a person. Yeah, first off, the bank's board said they'll stand by the CEO, a woman, I can't remember her name, and now she's resigned. But that's obviously a data breach. It goes,
Yeah.
it's a complete and absolute data breach. But there's this all this background story about all the things they had on file about him, and they couldn't
Mm.
find any reason. He hadn't broken the law, he hadn't done anything wrong, and because of his attitude, that's why they closed his bank account. And there's apparently a Facebook group with nearly 10,000 people that a large proportion of them have had issues with bank accounts because of their political views.
So they're right wingers, aren't they? Basically.
Right wing bigots, yeah, obviously. Uh, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and my problem with it is, okay, so first off, they're going to do that to the likes of Nigel Farage. Well, who cares? It's Nigel Farage. But it's like, look at what's happened to Kelly J. Yeah, she got she got so much. She did really good, and she really that stuff in New Zealand, really broke stuff wide open. And she'd been doing it for all those years before. And there's all these places that she can't use. There's people that won't print her T-shirts. There's people that she can't sign. I think it's like petitions on. I can't remember which one of the petition sites it is. There's all these companies that refuse to deal because of her political opinions about. So that's that's like a dictatorship, and it's I've no I grew up in the military. There's all sorts of things that rules and regulations you have to follow, but that wasn't as corrosive as this. The sort of like the structure of, I think about, what you think of sort of like hierarchy structure and patriarchy and all this. Yeah, and then there's this thing that is supposedly, coming out of left field.
Supposedly.
Yeah, I
Yeah, we
do
should
believe
stress that.
it. Well, I think it's kind of like, I think people wear this, like people, the very wealthy people that sort of like, espouse left wing politics. Their left wing politics aren't such that they're emptying their bank accounts to give them to the people. Yeah, their left wing politics are all about them being able to invest their money to make more money, to make more money. That's not left wing. That's right-wing capitalism. But they still espouse these left-wing ideas about inclusivity, and that's another thing about our Labour Party in this country. They're they're supposed to be this broad church, like a collection of groups that have different interests but come together to work together for the common good. And it's supposed to be about the people. Labour is the workers, but they're a middle class. I don't know what the word is. A middle class employer of middle class children. Does that make sense?
I think so,
Let
yeah.
it's how many of the Labour politicians' kids are ordinary working class kids that go to the
No,
schools?
well, they're
Yeah,
not.
no,
Most
none of
likely
them
not.
are. Yeah, they don't have to go to these schools where there's 30 in a room and you've got no discipline, no control, and basically the teacher is just hoping she can make it through the next hour until they all leave and she gets the next lot.
Well, it's basically the same in Germany, isn't it? I mean,
Germany used to have a really good
others
education
parties.
system.
Nah, actually, our kids get thicker and thicker. To be honest, a friend
Same.
of mine, yeah, a friend of mine told me once she used to work. That was quite a while ago, and it hasn't been better. It's even worse now. But then she used to work for the government. She was, like a person in the government and working with some high-ranking politician. And she said, "I am responsible for taking up students who want to learn here. You know, for what's it called, vocational training,
Yes.
and the young people who come to me, and young people, kind of 17 to 20 or whatever, um, they don't know. They apply to the government and they don't know who the chancellor is.
Oh
They
my
just
God.
don't know it. Can you imagine?
Wanting to
And
work
she
for the
said,
government.
send me anybody who can add up 1 plus 1 and knows if they apply to the government, how the government is organized. They are thick. They don't get a proper education anymore in schools. And like if you've got schools like here in Berlin and that are problematic, where there are many like unruly kids, you have to have the nerve to like find a way to get through to them. And if you don't, one of the schools here actually managed. Um, they picked up again. They really had a problem, and apparently it's better now.
Yeah. But what I think's missing is and I thought Germany was really good at doing the technical colleges.
Mm-mm.
That if you weren't particularly, if you weren't
Not
particularly academic,
anymore.
really,
Not anymore. They
'cause
they that is what we think about us and what people try to say about us, but apparently it's not really true, because what they do now for the A levels, that's probably the same here. Um, the students are so bad that they don't say educate them better in order to pass. They set down the limit so that they pass better. That's the kind
yeah,
of thing how I mean,
yeah,
they can be stupid, they can be
and still pass.
dumb and still pass,
Yeah.
because it's so obvious that something is wrong in the German school system. Yeah, well, they don't say,
It,
okay, you know, educate them well.
but
They say,
again,
okay, let them pass.
it is very similar. It's kind of to fail a child, for a child to sort of like to give a child a bad result. will devastate the child. And it's, well, if the child can't do the work, then perhaps this child's not going to be academic. Perhaps this child is going to be better off finding something else. The problem is we haven't got the something else. If you're not academic, it's almost as though if you're not academic, you're pretty useless, is the way we view things in this country. That the only people that matter are the people that get degrees. Anybody else is just working class. And who, why would you listen to someone that hasn't got an education? What could they possibly have to say that matters? There there definitely seems to be that classism at that level, and the the debt that families, young working class people would go into to get their degree, and there being a large chance that they're still not going to get work coming out the other side, and that debt creates a huge problem. Whereas if you've got more middle class families and their children are going to college, that debt still creates a problem, but it's something the middle class families can manage more easily. And if the child doesn't do well at the degree, the parents will still have more contacts where there's a chance the child will find employment and a reasonable wage, and then will be able to work, like for instance, internships, somewhere where you work for free to learn. That's been that's been used all over the place. Well, who can afford to work for free? Yeah, I think it's exploitation. I honestly think we're expected to raise children for them to be. They just want consumers that will say yes, and that's why I don't think they're interested in put that much emphasis on actually educating the children, and just want to tick boxes and say yes, we've done this, we've done that, we've done that. That's my job done, irrelevant of how well educated the child is. Everybody's done their bit, and the child comes away from school and they can barely read and write, and there's nowhere else. There's nowhere for them to go. Because I mean, another thing that I've heard said, and I kind of think it's true, that a lot of places we call places of education, schooling for children up to the age of 16, to me, it's more like warehousing. It's where people send their children to be kept off the streets while they go to work.
Oh, right. Oh my God.
Yeah. Because if we had those children all roaming around the streets, that would be very difficult to manage.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't even think of that. I mean, we
Well, it's
have. Have you
horrible.
got? Have you got that you are obliged? I think is the word to go to school. You have to go to
Hmm.
school. There is a rule. You have to go to school unless you're at a certain age or so. But up to a certain age, like level uh, Form 9 or something, um, they will pick you up. The police can pick you up and take you to school. Is that the same in England?
I think I don't know whether the police can pick you up and take you to school, but you're supposed to be in education until you're 16. I think it's going up to 18. And yeah, you're supposed to be there. And if you don't go to school, your parents can get fined.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Now I thought that was something that was a real thing, that if you didn't send your child to school, you would have the authorities down on you, and you'd be that they would have words with you. My youngest has this dyspraxia. It's kind of like she has language problems and fine and gross motor coordination problems. She lives independently. Uh, and I tried to get support for her. I trying to get the doctors or the authorities to understand there is a problem here. My child is not benefiting. My child is not doing as we would expect her to be doing, kind of thing. And they were just quite happy to ignore it and not give her the support, and not sort of like look into any of the problems that were going on. And I thought, right, okay. I said to my daughter, she was 5 or 6. She's not, very quite a few verbal problems at that age, but she could still speak some words. And I asked her, I said, "How do you feel when you're at school?" and she pulled her knees up, wrapped her arms around her knees, and just put her head down. Yeah, to tell me how she felt while she was at school. And I thought, I can't have this. I'd been told that she'd been bullied, because we had other kids in the school, so I was aware that she was being bullied. And I tried to talk to the school about it, no good. So I thought, right, I'm going to take my child out of school. I will homeschool her. And I thought the authorities would be down on me like a ton of bricks. And then I could turn around and say, well, I've taken her out of school because, of all these problems. She's getting bullied. She has speech problems. Struggling writing. It's really obvious there is a problem, and that there is some sort of support, that if you're expecting her to gain an education, something needs to be understood. Something's missing. And we didn't have a diagnosis back then. And they did nothing. A year later, they'd still done nothing. So, yeah, there's supposed to be this system that would pick up that, but my experience was it didn't. And the only reason we got help in the end was because there was my ex-husband, his wife, myself, and my partner all going to the education department together, speaking from this, yeah. And then we started to get help. Well, I think there's another element of this about women's bodies. The stress that you deal with when you're dealing with all these systems that are supposed to be there to guide and help you and make it better for you and your children, that it gives you a belief that there's help. And then so you spend half your life trying to find this help and trying to fight for, apparently, to get what you're supposed to get. And you think about children, you think about custody battles, you think about the benefit system, various jobs that you'll do, and you put all that into, and housing, that the issue of housing and paying your rent and paying your bills, all of that, it's a never ending stress on mothers, and it may be on fathers too. But my partner and I, I'm pretty disabled, and it's not a word, it's a word I'm starting to get used to, because I wasn't disabled. My body is, I've been diagnosed with fibromyalgia. There's other issues, but I wasn't able to fight for myself there by the time I got that ill there. My partner fought tooth and nail for me. If I hadn't had a partner, I would have probably ended up topping myself, because I'd have been homeless. I'd have been, and I wouldn't have been able to go anywhere to fight anything. And I'm lucky I've got my partner. There's loads of people that don't have a partner. There's loads of people that have all these problems that have been because of absolute years of stress of fighting systems that are supposed to be a system designed to make things better for you or your child. Normally it's focused on the child. And if you go to a teacher and say, well, her handwriting's still bad, and I've been to the optician, I've been to the doctors, blah, blah, blah. And the teacher says something along the lines of, well, I think you probably need to see if about getting extra support in school for her. So then you go to the authorities that do that. The teachers get involved, the various authorities get involved. But it doesn't, it often just falls apart, and sort of like it gets lost and dropped. And the actual follow through is, the system probably, I don't think it works for anybody. I think the system rewards the people that run the system. So the money's being taken from the masses to apparently be given to people in need, but out of that there's all these wages that have got to be paid of these various administrators at the top, and they don't call themselves whether it's a civil servant on a high pay packet, or whether it's what's the other one, the CEOs, whether it's a, because we've got businesses. I mean, in Germany, your healthcare system's always been run through insurance, isn't it? I think, or for a long time.
Yeah, yeah. No, no, it's through insurances.
You pay church tax in Germany still,
Yeah. If you do, you do. I mean, you can get out of it, but it's generally yes. You have to
and
say I'm not Christian or anything, and then you that stops. But if you don't mind, it just carries on.
I like that. I like that it's a choice at least. But
At
because
least,
the my partner's sister, I think it was she always voted for the Christian Democrats, and she was quite religious. I think she still is fairly religious. And what was the party that just got a load of votes in Germany that was a bit of a surprise?
uh, what do you mean in the last
A,
big elections? Oh, AfD,
yeah,
Alternative for Germany. Yeah,
yeah,
but they are
that's
right
who she.
wingers.
I know, but that's who she voted for.
You're joking.
No, yeah, and honestly, if you knew her, yeah, she's a really nice, lovely woman. She's always been Christian. There's nothing awful or horrible about the woman. But part of that patriarchal structure that she's involved with, which is Christianity, because and that side of that's why I worry about what's going to go on with people, because if something doesn't happen with politics that represent the left, if something doesn't change, we're all going to be in for it because there is only going to be the right wing.
Well, that's the problem. The right wingers, they are now, like there is a group who do what's it called, uh, surveys. Like who would people vote for um, if there were elections on next week or this Sunday, because we always vote on Sundays. Okay, and the AfD is at 20% now, 22%. They are close to CDU, who have got 26%. If it carries on like this, we will not, we can't stop them from being in a in the government. In the Yeah, we will not be able to stop them. They are anyway, but like as a opposition. But yeah, we're doomed. If it carries on like this, we're doomed. And what? Why does she? What did she say? Why did she vote for AfD instead of CDU? Did she say that?
I think it's got a lot to do with the immigration border
All
control.
right, that's the one. Okay.
It always is, yeah.
It always is. Oh my
And
God.
again, it comes from often it's like again the working classes have been complaining about immigration for like forever, and they've just been treated as racist bigots. Nobody's actually listened to
Yeah.
what's going on the
I
ground.
mean, they do. Uh, I mean, you cannot make people think it is nice to have immigration. We've got food banks, poor people from Germany, if you want to divide, and migrants are now fighting for the money, for the food, apparently, because everybody is so poor that they need that in order to survive.
I watched a
But
program on it.
that's a class thing, isn't it? And they set us up against each other.
They don't care for anyone. It's not. They don't care for the migrants. They don't care for the Germans. They don't care for the British. One of the worst things you can be in this country is English. And it's like for my partner, she gets, generally speaking, better treatment off our institutions than I do.
Why is
No,
that? What has
because I'm
changed there?
English.
What's that? No,
That's because
but
I'm English.
which means you are an oppressor or what?
Apparently, Yeah, or or the other thing is I've had all these benefits. I've had all the benefits of being English and being in this white supremacist country, and I need help. So, I'm still going to the NHS dentist. I'm not going to a private dentist because I haven't got the money to go to a private dentist. It's all those sorts of judgments. So it's like with my teeth, my teeth, because I haven't been able to get dental care. And the other thing is, when you've got kids, if you haven't been able to get dental care,
Yeah,
you put the kids, you book all the kids in first. Well, I mean, we
yeah.
went through a stage where we couldn't get kids into the dentist. Yeah, they built a new dentist, and it was like, yeah, brilliant. We got in there, we got the kids their appointments, just getting through the kids' appointment. I think I had one appointment with them, and then the dentist got burnt down.
Oh my God. How burnt down?
Yeah,
Okay, burnt down. I'm sorry. I'm trying to
yeah,
grasp that. Okay.
that's that's what I'm saying. It's kind of like, and so by the time that, and
What
this was
kind of
like,
hellhole? I
this
mean,
this was a normal city in the UK. A lot of immigration, but I doubt it was immigrants that burnt the bloody thing down. And it wasn't solely staffed by immigrants either. But the point is, it got burnt down, and that meant, okay, so we've now got to go so many more years without a dentist. And now my dentist that I've got looks down her nose at me because my teeth are terrible, and she's got a real snotty I think she sounds like she's got a bit of an Eastern European accent. Yeah, and you can feel this sort of like vibe coming off her about, I am made to feel like some low life, and it really, I'm very polite about it, but I find it very difficult to be polite about it. And my partner will get treated much better.
yeah. And she's got the better teeth anyway, or
No, she has none.
oh, she has
She ha-
none.
she has dentures. Yeah,
Oh, that's easy then, and that looks nice. So you have
exactly.
I know what you're talking about. I'm sorry, I don't want to be, you know,
No, no, no,
nasty.
no.
That
It is.
it
It,
is
it's the
it
whole
is a
thing.
problem, isn't it? The whole attitude towards
She had 5 kids.
healthcare
That's why
and
her teeth. Yeah, her teeth are like that. She had 5 children. Yeah, that's why. Yeah, and she lost her teeth quite a long time before me. But it's that when you've got this person that is had this life and these experiences, and you've got this person sat there judging them because of where they're at without a clue about where they've been. It's so unprofessional.
absolutely, the doctor shouldn't do that. Absolutely
And it's
not.
and yet it's my experience has been that it's very normal for them to do that. I've had two good doctors in my entire life. Both of them women. One of them I had for about 4 or 5 years, and the one that I've got now, which I've had for about 15 years. And she is a lovely human being. She's had health issues herself. When she was first my doctor, she's absolutely the best doctor in the entire world as far as I was concerned. Then she started having children, and she had 3 children, so she took a lot of time out of work, blah blah blah. She also got ill. She had sort of like problems, so she was away a lot. And then she wasn't the greatest doctor. She was still a good doctor, but what made her the good doctor was the fact that she was a good human being. Yeah, and I stay with her because she's a good human being, and as her children get up, her ability to doctor will improve.
Mm.
Yeah, but that's a reality. People don't like hearing those realities because it's like putting something on women. But my thing about this is that we need more female doctors, and females often want to be mothers, so we need to be able to create workspaces where mothers can be doctors, and more job sharing that rewards the mother not just for the work that she does as a doctor, but for doing,
As a mother.
yeah. And
Mm-hmm.
again, I have issues about how far that goes, if because with some women, if the more income they get from the state, it can make them a target of nefarious men. So I want resources given to women and children, but resources given to women and children that men cannot take or use to benefit themselves.
I think something has to change. We had this topic in our spaces. We had that quite often now. Um, because initially you said that you don't like that women get told to having to work, right?
Hmm.
And I consider raising a child work,
Hmm.
right? So,
It is. It's
but
hard
it's
work.
unpaid. It's hard work and it's unpaid. Like at the moment,
Mm.
and I think the whole structure should change so that women can choose to work if they don't want to or don't care to or whatever their reason is not to be at home with the child. They should be able to work and have the child in good care, whoever that is. That can be the husband, the
Yeah.
wife, whatever,
Yeah.
just for the process. And a woman who decides to raise her kids and be there and look after the family and keep the house in order or whatever they do, um, they should have the money too. I mean, there should be a way to support either way of life,
Yeah.
their life. You know.
Uh, uh, well, I see. That's part of what I want, but I want us to also understand the problem with uh, young lasses that get taken advantage of. They'll have a baby, they'll get a certain amount of benefit from the government, and then the man that she's with, will be whatever he is, take advantage in some way. She'll end up in debt, not able to pay the rent on the house, all sorts of things that's supposed to come from her benefit. And then he'll bugger off, and then there'll be another man, and then sometimes there's another baby, sometimes there's 3 or 4 babies, and the woman herself is getting more and more run into the ground. She's not she's not she's benefiting from the money in as much as she's able to feed her children, but the money is also making her a target because she's got a roof over her head and she's got an income that is highly attractive to men.
Right. Okay.
So what I would one of the things I would like to see so much is what I had when I was a married woman, when I was married to a soldier. The house was provided. We all had the same carpets, the same furniture, the same curtains, the same net curtains, the same beds, the same dressers, the same wardrobes, the same hoovers, the same fridges,
Really.
the same cookers, all
That was
identical, the
all
same
provided by the
the
military.
the military, including
Right.
cutlery, glasses, everything you need to live your life was provided by the military. And when we lived in Germany, we didn't get energy bills. It was paid from the guys' wages. They never got it. It went straight out of their wages. So there was no fear of bills there. Everybody had the same. Yeah. If you were clever and you managed to save some of your money, you might buy yourself your very own three-piece suite. You might change your curtains. You might buy yourself a Hoover. But all that stuff is there. And I want that security for women and children.
So basic, like a basic thing that is there for women and their kids to survive. And if they choose, if they get in a better position later or so, they can change something, but it's there initially, so that
Yeah,
they don't have to worry about like buying furniture and all that kind of stuff.
yeah. And I think we have to get back to the idea of understanding that actually, yes, young girls and young women often do need protecting from men and boys.
Well, we're not talking about that issue. That's the problem I see. When generally speaking, we're talking about motherhood. We're talking about single moms. We're talking about what education. We're talking about rights and da, 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 da. And when you look at it, pornography, yeah, and
Yeah.
prostitution, when you look at it and when you dissect it, you end up looking at brutes. You end up looking at male violence. And we never
Well,
talk about that. We don't.
well, I mean, the sex trafficking thing about it being $150 billion. How is it that organized crime can operate like that with $150 billion floating around? That's not something that's unfixable. That's something that people are turning a blind eye to,
Yeah, because
and that's
men
men.
don't suffer, generally speaking. I mean,
Mm.
some men might be suffering, but generally the victims are the women.
I think it's power. I think men have, because they're bigger and stronger than us generally, they have more power than us, and they can gain better position in society because they can exercise that power. And I think as they elevate themselves up through various positions and believe that they are all powerful, that belief in their power is what completely corrupts them. Because if you can have whatever you want, and you've got all the money and all the power and all the prestige, and you can just help yourself, they don't want what they want. They want what they can't have because that's what they haven't had. And now they've got all this money and power. It means they should, in their own mind, be able to have what they want. And I wonder whether men being able to hold any kind of power over other people is actually benefiting anybody, because it risks so much. If if men cannot control themselves and each other as a sex class, they are to be seen as a danger to others and themselves, and they need to be raised in a manner that I don't think will enable them to have that power. They, I don't, I think men are so screwed up with their sexuality and their whatever goes on in their pants that it dictates so much of their desire and their territory and their need to control, and that's what drives them. And I think if you've got people, go on.
I'm not sure. I mean, isn't it? I mean, it's the structure they grew up in. I don't know. Is it only their willy? I mean, I know I'm with you completely, and I think that if they can't behave, they should be put in cages and only let out if they're not dangerous. You know,
Well,
if they
I'm one of those
claim,
evil. I was just going to say I'm one of those I'm one of those evil people that would bring in the death penalty for child sexual abuse and rape.
uh,
I've got.
I
I don't
see.
believe. It
Yeah,
sounds nasty. It sounds mean. I've got stepsons that I love. There's men in my life that I love,
yeah,
but this is. We used to call these men perverts. Now we
yeah.
talk about
Well,
them
that's
having
what they
mental
are.
health problems, but it's all mental health. So someone can say, I've got mental health problems, and that could mean they've got depression, that could mean they have obsessive compulsive thoughts about sex or obsessive compulsive thoughts about killing someone. Yet all they have to do is say, I've got mental health problems, or a little label, and that changes everything from, oh, they're not perverts anymore, they're people that need help. So therefore, we need to understand them. So if we understand them, we can find out how to fix it, and we can work with them and we can rehabilitate them. My experience of what I've seen in life tells me that those men are not going to be rehabilitated. It's not going to change. There's no point trying to understand it. It's something in them that is broken, and they remain a danger to all women. And what we've done is, rather than help men control their sexuality, what we've done is sort of like make them believe that they can, everything is about their sexuality, that that's the single most important thing, and everyone in the world must understand their sexuality and their needs are paramount.
And we tell kids how to avoid dangerous situations. We're not saying this man is a, like a sex offender or a potential sex offender or whatever. We teach women and children, and especially girls, how to avoid the situation. Don't go there. There might be a man. Why don't we say, look, man, you haven't got anything to do in the that park. Women might go past there, and if you talk to a woman who doesn't want to talk to you, you get arrested, period. Right? But we focus on telling the victims how to behave better in order to avoid the male violence. This is ridiculous.
Yeah, we're telling girls
Yeah,
to suck it up about having men in their
yeah,
bathrooms.
yeah. And it's
Yeah.
getting worse and worse now. Yeah,
Uh,
it's
uh,
I can't. I'm too old for this shit, to be honest. I can't. Like I keep thinking, what's going on?
because it's insane. It's absolutely insane that we would be doing this to our girls, and being allowing our girls put in that position of danger in a time where male behaviour in my lifetime has never been as bad as it is now. So these men are worse, they are more dangerous, and we call it mental health. And that's another thing. That in Germany, did you used to have like they were called mental asylums for people with mental health? Yeah, but the thing is that those institutions that housed many, actually many that weren't mentally ill, but also many that were, got closed down because they had such a terrible reputation. And then we had all the talk about care in the community, and then they cut all any community funding. So we had all these people, that these mental health patients that were n- without any more institutions, and we've got psychiatric wards attached to hospitals, and there's not enough beds and there's not enough places for all the people with the mental health. And most people that, a lot of people that go onto these psychiatric wards are, especially women, are in danger of mentally ill men. So again, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's happening in many countries, but again, it's one of those things, it's difficult to get the word out. You have to have someone that's got a lot of courage and some backing to get the word out. Like, again, look at Kelly J. Yeah, her husband's got a good business. Yeah, she lives in a nice house at 50 years old. That's such a terrible thing to be doing. Her and her husband have been working together for like 25 years to build a family and a home. And it's kind of, but because she's married to him and she's got a supportive family, she can do what she can for us because she has a level of independence because of that. She does not have a job where her employer is going to sack her and that's the end of her career. And yeah, but the fact that, how is it we live in a world where women have got so much freedom and we've got all this power that we supposedly have now, yet the women with the careers and that are the women that are least able to stand up to this?
Look at Kathleen Stock. Can you imagine? I mean, you know, witch hunt and she's gone, and then they say, "Oh, we didn't want you to go. We never said you have to go." I mean,
They just left her to be
oh,
bullied
oh,
out of her home, and out of her job. And it's cowardice. Why wouldn't I liked my space. I did not like my brother, and I liked my space. I had my own bedroom. He had his own bedroom, and if I when I got home from school after letting myself in with the letterbox through getting the key through the letterbox, if the minute he came in from school, I would go out to avoid him. Now, when we were in the best time of my childhood was when we were in Germany, because he got sent to boarding school there, so I didn't have to put up with him. My childhood, that was the best. That's why I think that's why I've got such fond memories of Germany from when I was a kid, because I only had to put up with him in the holidays. It was noticeable that my mother and father didn't row. Yeah, and then there'd be the holidays, and my brother would be home, and then he would start causing trouble, and it would cause arguments between my mum and my dad, and they didn't really argue with each other so much, more that my mum was pissed off and my dad was pissed off. And when my mum was pissed off, I'd get it in the neck there, and it kind of like it always created that little what's his name. So even in my childhood, I can have this gap where I can turn around and say to myself, yeah, that bit there when my brother wasn't was the best bit of my childhood. Now, all those years, so when my dad gets out of the army and I'm 14, all of a sudden I've got to put up with my brother being at home again, full time. Yeah, I mean, that was horrendous. When I think, when our sons, if our sons had done anything like my brother, the things my brother did to me, if our sons had done anything like that to our girls, I would have probably beat the crap out of them, to be honest. Because if and when I was much older, it did, and I feel guilty for this because it's not her fault. But when I was much older, I think I was in my late 30s, early 40s, and I said to my mum, you know, mum, if uh, I'd been married to a man and he'd hit me and done what my brother did to me throughout my childhood, that man would be in prison for domestic abuse. And it upset her, and her upset reaction is to be angry because I know, well, because I know that she didn't see that. She knew it was happening, but she always stood by my brother. And I know that a lot of that was because my brother's temper was so bad that once she set him off and she couldn't control him. Yeah, so I knew all that was in the thing. I had guilt about it, but she kept trying to push my brother and I together constantly. Yeah, my partner and I and my girls, we were bullied by my mother to go to a meal with my brother when I was in my 40s because I couldn't say no to her. Yeah. And I honestly think that it's not an uncommon story
Mm-hmm.
for younger sisters with older brothers that have, he had a lot of quite a few learning difficulties. I think he was probably dyslexic and probably ADHD or something like that. That back then it was just undiagnosed. And I do think that's a common story. And I was talking to someone the other day, and I said one of the questions I asked myself is, would I have been so quick to leave home and live in a flat with a man had my brother not been at home? And again, how many women did that? How many women left home to get away from a difficult family situation, and luckily enough, like I say, luckily enough, you know, it was a good guy. But a lot of young lasses end up with not good guys, but they leave home for the same reason, or for that reason. And like with me, it's not like my dad weren't there, so it wasn't as bad for me as a lot of mothers would have found if they had difficult sons and there wasn't a man to keep him in line. And I do think that those dynamics of family life get ignored. The sort of like the effect a bullish brother can have on a young girl. Like I said, I fight. My it's like every core of my body is keyed up for if some male starts intimidating me, my partner, my children, or anyone I care about, I am ready to go full pelt. I will rip your face off with with my fingernails. I will bite your nose off. I will put my fingers in your eyes, and I will do everything I can to bring you to the ground. That's what happens when I see that kind of male behaviour. And it sounds stupid, and it sounds like other people say, "Oh, I'm so damaged," and all the rest of it. I'm really glad. I'm really glad I've got it. It's why we survived the estate. It's why my partner felt safe when a ex-husband used to try harassing us, because I would stand there and say no, because I wasn't frightened if I was going to get hit. Bad, isn't it? That you that's a benefit in that violence
But
as
it is.
yeah,
It
it was a
has to
gift.
survive this world.
Yeah, and this is why I say to a lot of people as well about rough estates and kids, and I've got an attitude about middle class people telling us how to raise our kids. Yeah, well they pay somebody else. Yeah, well they pay somebody else to look after theirs. And my kids,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
my kids, they had to leave our house every morning, walk through our estate, and walk all the way to school. Yeah, they had to they had to be able to survive in the place they lived, not this idealistic world that they might eventually move into if they're very lucky and they work very hard. And it's that disconnect, and I think there's the whole um, like the people from on high telling the people on the ground in the poor, harsh places of life how we must behave in a civilized world and a civilized community.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it? They know how you have to behave.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
they wouldn't last 5 minutes where we lived. Yeah, their kids would never have gone out, never have left the house. They'd have been too frightened to ever let their kids walk through the estate to go to school. And those kids would have been the ones that end up sitting in their bedroom until they're like 40 on their computers because they're too frightened to go outside. It is tough old world for women.
Absolutely.
And people say about men, and yeah, I've got sympathy. I've got sympathy for them because I've got like my stepsons and I've got some good men in my life. Yeah. So
Oh, that's good.
I want a way forward. I I I want somewhere. I talk about female reparations. Well,
Reparations.
yeah, yeah. Think about it. You know, think about female reparations. How many? What would our democratic makeup be now if all the baby girls that were aborted because they're girls, all the women that have been killed by men, all the babies and the women that starved to death because they were much quicker to give food to their boys and their men than they were themselves or their daughters. What would be our democratic makeup? What population of women would be in comparison to men now? If all the women that hadn't been killed and aborted had lived, would we make up 70% of the population?
Probably. Probably. Well, 60 to 70.
Yeah. So female reparations, because there's like 20% of us missing, and I want us to have a female estate that is funded by the state. I want it to fund and educate our female scientists, our doctors, our gynecologists, our mental health researchers. I want all female healthcare to be taken away from men and placed in the hands of the female estate. I want I want women to be appreciated as the people that actually keep the humanity and humans going. And I want because I only think a female state would know how to provide.
Yeah, but don't you think that the women are so look look around, look around how we hate each other, and even in the movement, don't you think we women are so damaged that this is just a dream? Would we really be like that? Do you think? I
Right,
sometimes wonder.
but this is the thing. Women are so damaged. We don't know what it's like to have a society of women where men have no power over us. We have no clue what it would be like, who we would be if we weren't always controlled by this idea of you grow up, you meet a nice man, and you have babies, and you live happily ever after. That's the standard dream, and that fails more often than not nowadays. It doesn't work, and I want to. Women are damaged because of the shit they've taken on board, and then they'll be given labels like a woman will kick off online on Twitter and she'll go fucking mental, and oops, sorry, she'll go flipping mental and let rip, and everybody will have all these opinions about her, and they'll say, oh, she's a narcissistic, manic depressive, and all these things. And my take is often, is anyone surprised? You know, why is a woman losing her crap online, and you know, such a devastating, awful thing to everybody else? Why is everybody else so focused on how traumatizing it is for them? How offended I am. Yeah, I'm so offended that you behaved like that. And it's well, you know, I'm
Exactly.
offended. Yeah, I'm offended that we live in a world where a woman can carry that level of damage and not have had enough of anything. And it's such a common story, and there's nowhere she can go to get help, because in reality, everybody's going to always look at her like a nutcase. And I think if we had a female estate that would cater to women and exclude men, and it is paid for by the male estate, because how dare they think they need to earn their right to procreate as a whole, not as individuals, as a whole. Yeah, and as far as I'm concerned, until they get their stuff sorted, yeah, they're they're, they're just going to keep reproducing the same rubbish and the same problem. So let's try something different. Like, I mean, in the UK,
Oh my
with the royal
God, wouldn't
family,
that be lovely?
why aren't we fighting for it? Why isn't that a priority for us? Why isn't that something that feminists are screaming from the rooftops? You
But
know,
there are some feminists who think about it. But, like, honestly, I am absolutely isolated in Berlin at the moment from certain groups because they can't bear when I say, look, you're supporting this system by saying trans woman, call them men, right?
yeah,
And things like that. And you can't go to I don't know, you can't on one hand be a red femme and on the other hand march along with
be a lesbian.
people, yeah, as a lesbian with the asterisks. It doesn't work.
Yeah,
You have to pick.
but that's
You
the
have to pick. You know, you can't get
yeah.
both ways. You can't have it both ways.
But the ideology is their ruling thing. Yeah, so it's kind of like you have to be in one ideology or another, and it's kind of like I feel like okay, so I'm not a proper lesbian because I'm not a rad femme.
Nah.
No, but you look at any, you try and find a sort of like lesbian group just to socialize and mix and have a laugh with, and how many of them are going to be kind of like, what do you mean you're not a rad femme? what's the matter with you? Yeah, well, I'm not a rad fem because I don't necessarily believe everything that rad fems believe, or I'm not going to read every rad fem book that I ever know so I can parrot
Yeah,
all their little phrases. And
yeah, exactly. That they can do that very well, though. Many of them.
well, it reminds me. See, the trannies are like, I call them like parrot people because they wear all those bright colours and they just keep repeating the same few phrases. So they're parrot people. But some of the rad fems, yeah, they just sort of like, and it's like, how can you not see the similarity between your behaviours?
It is amazing, isn't it?
And it's like, you know, my heart goes out to young lesbians. Like, you know, what do I do? Who am I with? Who am I not with? Who do I support? Who's on what team? And I don't subscribe to I don't subscribe to any particular ideology. Uh, if something is going to work and it is benefiting people, and I can see the people involved and I can feel the people involved,
Yeah.
I want to help. Yeah, but if the people I see involved are generally speaking unpleasant and uh, arrogant and very much looking down their nose at anyone that doesn't have the correct opinion, I haven't got. I've got. I've got patience and time to some degree because you know raising kids, you kind of like accidentally,
You develop that, don't you?
yeah, yeah. So I've got a lot of time for people having arguments, and I can listen to either side, and I can, understand people's rows, and I can nearly always see both sides of an argument, and I'm not quick to take sides generally, but I will support both sides if because I can understand the anger. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So I can
Mm-hmm.
understand one person being angry and another person being angry and what it is they're angry about. But that doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to take sides. Uh, and it's like with the Kelly J thing. Uh, I um, there was a whole thing with Julie Bindel and the Kelly J and some feminist articles and editorials. And I stood back initially thinking, oh, I don't know what's this all about. And I didn't look into it, but then I started seeing bits coming out and I started looking into it and I thought, wow. So the people that are the feminists that are doing all the work for us and are so wonderful, they're calling men women and sister. And yet Kelly J's some kind of like bigoted right wing this, that and the next thing. And it's to me, Kelly J had it right from the word go. Yeah, you don't call these men women.
Yeah.
And it's simple and it's obvious and it's clear. So why are they so angry, the feminists, about Kelly? It makes no sense.
Oh, she doesn't. As is, well,
She doesn't conform to their ideology or
feminist idea. Yeah,
their
the feminist
demands.
idea. You can't dye your hair and style yourself like she does and wear lipstick and
She even did that to take the piss to some degree. Yeah, she sort of like they gave it a try and thought, oh, actually that's quite good fun. And then I can guarantee, yeah, if people had been sort of like ha 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 about it, she'd have done it all the more because it's like, oh, piss off. It's one of those sort of like British things that if someone criticizes you for it and you think they're an idiot, they're a pillock, or they're just self-righteous, you tend to sort of like express it a little bit more, if that makes sense.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah,
it's a
yeah.
way of
It
saying up
makes
yours,
no.
I don't care. It's like saying up yours, I don't
But
care.
yeah, because I mean, she looked different when she had this. I think she was in an interview with oh God, Magdalene
Mm, mm.
Magdalene Burns, And she
Yep.
had dark hair then, didn't she? And she
Yes.
looked all normal, not like
Not glam. Not glam. Just everyday one
no,
of
not
us.
at
Yeah.
all. Everyday
Yeah.
one of us. What
Yeah.
happened? Why did she turn into Marilyn Monroe?
I think probably she dyed her hair because she fancied doing it, and then some people started making comments about it, and she thought, well, actually, yeah, actually, it's fun. Yeah. So I wouldn't. I'm not 100% sure, but it's very British. If, like I say, if someone criticizes you for something and you think they're just pillocks and idiots, the what's his name is to literally do it more and say, up yours, idiot.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So that might be the reason, because I mean, rat femmes, rat. I mean, I don't call myself rat femme. I use it for people to kind of understand where I'm coming from. But I always said I'm a lesbian, a
Yeah.
woman-focused lesbian, and that's it. That says it all.
Yes.
Because
And
if you
that's
understand what a lesbian is,
yeah,
that says it
exactly.
all.
Yeah, you could,
You
yeah,
know.
how can you have any other opinion? Yeah, woman focused lesbian. Yeah, that means no men ever. How hard can it be? And how is it Julie Bindle couldn't understand it?
Well, I don't know. I'm a bit disappointed by what I mean, I didn't follow all the, like things people said, women said. But I had the impression that there was a bit of an argument between KJK and Julie Bindel, and
It's kind of like it's that the click where people get in cliques and they're sort of like they're little
mhm,
groupies and I think uh Kelly J stood up fairly early on saying that little girls of a young age having to wear full body hijab and stuff like that because of um because of men's need to control their desires and stuff like that. Something it wasn't as simple as that. It wasn't as simple as that, and it wasn't exactly that. So I don't want to say that she said something that she hasn't, but there was something to do with that, and she got a bit piled on. I think I don't know whether she got piled on, but I don't know whether people said something, and then she also said something about what's going on with the trafficked girls, the young, poor, often mainly white girls from big cities with large. It wasn't all Muslim, I don't think, and it wasn't all Pakistani, but a mix of sort of immigrant um, communities, and it may not be just first generation, and it may not be second generation. I'm not too sure, but she said something along the lines of, well, see, the problem with Tommy Robinson is because that other stuff didn't get addressed. It has left a power vacuum that made it easy for Tommy Robinson to rise up because he was trying to deal with it. He was trying to draw attention to it. So you then get that, and she said something along those lines, and then people turned it into her having said something else too, like she had turned around and said, "Oh yeah, Tommy Robinson's okay." She said nothing of the sort,
mhm,
and it all got changed, and it's like Chinese whispers, and then all of a sudden we've got these, and one of the magazines that was you have to have subscription to get their magazine and but they let this one time this piece they did critiquing Kelly J. They let it out for free so everybody could read their illuminating opinion, their informed, academic, well reasoned, analytical opinion of Kelly J's actions and behaviours. And it seemed to happen every time she got media. She had media. Yeah, so I think it happened. I think it was after when she the first time, the time that she went on Tucker on what's his name, Tucker Carlson, that Fox Guy News.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
she went on there, and Kara Dansky went on there as well, and I think Kara Dansky had a hard time about it, and like you say, the guilt. It's kind of like doing the guilt through association stuff. When if you haven't got any mainstream left wing media outlets that are gonna let you get your where are you gonna go? Yeah,
Yeah,
and
well,
then the
some women here in Berlin say you don't go anywhere. You found independent lesbian movement. Yeah, autonomous, right?
yeah,
Thank you very much. But the self IDs around the corner. You know how long it takes to build an autonomous um,
yeah, like
thingy.
so in 50 or 60 years, so in 50 or
Exactly.
60
We can
years, yeah,
start fighting.
yeah.
It's ridiculous, you
They're
know.
making
And
themselves look like um I can't even think of the word, but it ridiculous comes to mind. Petty is another one because this is yeah, this is more important than any group. This is more important than anything any of us have ever come across in our lives, as far as I can tell. I,
yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
politically, I cannot think of another time in my lifetime that has been this dangerous for women and girls. Yeah, yeah, and Kelly is, I mean, I admire her beyond. But first off, I think she must run on bloody batteries and plug into her charger at
Yeah.
night. Where does she get her energy from?
Yeah.
Oh my god!
I don't know. I don't know. And she's not young, is she? I mean, I keep thinking, okay, she's younger than I am, so well, she's probably okay. But really, she has got a strong Duracell battery in her back, hasn't she?
Yeah, but that was, I mean, one of the things about my mum was she had so much energy. She exhausted everybody just by looking at her. Yeah, but the thing is, she could get stuff done. And if you wanted sort of like something done, my mum would be, people always relied on my mum. She was always reliable. And I think that's another thing with Kelly. She pretty much tries to do what she says. It's like she says she's going to try to get to New Zealand. I haven't seen any kind of anyone out there that is addressing the public as often as she does. She's talking to
Yeah,
all of us through her channel. She's she's letting us know what she's doing, where things are going. When she's not talking to us, she's talking to other people on other channels. Look how many interviews she puts out. She gets interviewed and she puts them out. And the fact that she's been cut back on social media, on Twitter and YouTube, and that there are certain factions of the GC stroke feminist community that are happy that she's being shut down.
yeah, I know. It's disgusting.
How is it not going
Yeah,
to take? It's destroying
I
We've got
know.
the lib fems destroying feminism, and we've got
Yeah, but
these.
there are red femmes as well.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
Yeah,
lib femmes, forget it. As lib femmes are
yeah.
anti
They're not
feminism.
feminists. They're
No,
ridiculous.
they're not. If anything, they are anti-feminism. But I think even red femmes, due to their purist idea, and they don't understand that. Especially, I think it might be when they're younger. Um, I don't know. No, not
I
necessarily. They don't understand how dangerous the situation is. They might say that, but they don't understand it.
well, I
And
think
that
there's
would
an
be,
yeah.
yeah, sorry, do you
Well,
think?
no, there's another problem, and I think it's like because listening to young American rad fems experiences and the anger and the safety net that they don't have. We have a much better social safety net. Still difficult, hard work, and all the rest of it, but at least it is there. And the abortion issue and the religious issues, and because it's like it's a federal arrangement, and you've got the individual states. So individual states with their individual rules that means that people that like this particular state's outlook, they can all go to that one state because they like it politically, which also means that you gather people of a similar opinion in different areas, which also means that people will develop radically different ideas about what is okay because you're mixing with people that think like you. more than you are, and you're almost not mixing with people that don't think like you because they're in a different state. And I know this is simplistic, but so you're able to have more. It's still one country, but you can have much more extreme differences of what you're legally entitled to, uh, according to what state. Whereas in England, well, in the UK, the rules are fairly much settled across. There's different rules in Ireland reference abortion, I think, and that's sort of like been in more recently. But the abortion issue isn't a thing over here, and it is a thing in Germany. Well, it is a thing in Ireland, and I think there's a couple of issues still in the UK. But I do think the things that happen to women in America, I might be wrong, but it feels that it's a lot worse than it is over here. So the anger about it is a lot worse. And another thing is, we're the first real generation of people that are alive now, the first generations, including the young ones, that have access to all this information telling us what is happening to women every day. We never had that before. So now we know all this, and our anger and our rage, and the young radfems, I can understand their anger and their rage, and their desperation to say to people like me, "You're an idiot. You don't understand the theory. You're an idiot. You don't understand. You don't understand." Yeah, and I can understand that they can't understand me, but
Mm-hmm.
by them taking that attitude, by their anger being expressed at other women, what they're doing is they're actually making women turn away from feminism there. And uh, where do women go when they're turned away from feminism? What else is there? Well, what other women's groups are there that aren't feminist? Because all groups say they're feminist, all women's groups say they're feminist because they say they work with women. But when you've got these people so angry with you because you support Kelly J. Keane and you're a lesbian, and what is wrong with you? It it's turning ordinary women, ordinary lesbians, us, I don't like the word normal, but us boring people every day, commoners or whatever. So we've got the trans ideology being thrown at us by the liberal feminists. We've got the rad fem uh, ideology being thrown at us by rad fems, and so as lesbians, right, well, we're all going to end up on the left because the right just want to sell us. Whereas the left want to control everything that we do for themselves and sort of like for the state, but whereas the right want to own everything we do for the benefit of themselves. So there's nowhere, you know, how it's like this is a good saying. I'm a non-aligned lesbian.
Non-aligned. You mean politically aligned with anybody?
I'm not aligned anywhere with any sort of like
Uh,
feminist
ah.
groups or any.
Oh, yeah. Feminists. Yes. Non-aligned lesbian.
What would hold on?
Uh,
Nal, non-aligned lesbian. I was just thinking NAL. Nal. I'm a Nal. Because someone will
uh,
say that when they NAL.
hello now.
Hello now. All right now. Sounds all right.
maybe
Goes all
we
right.
maybe we can create this. What are
Yeah,
you now?
yeah, yeah. Agree. We're non-aligned lesbians because like the feminists.
That sounds really good.
But it's one of the things
I
that
have
I
to
want.
think about that.
Yeah, but the UK lesbian project. When I heard about that coming out, I was like, yeah, 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 great, great. And then it's like, okay, so it's being backed by Julie Bindel. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm all right, she's a lesbian, she's a feminist, she's got a lot of experience. And collecting
Mm.
data on lesbians is really, really important. But there is this thing in the back of me that's like, no, because what they're going to do is put out this kind of like, is it going to be like another left wing indoctrination process? And that's what I I like the idea.
That's
I'm quite
worrying, isn't
happy.
it?
Yeah, I'm quite happy
Mm,
for us to have, for me to be on the left, for all of us to be on the left, for us to have social
mm,
safety nets, for capitalism to be something that doesn't eat us.
mm.
I want the society that can change these things, and I want it to happen. But I want people to be able to come to their knowledge without it being force fed to them. You're a lesbian. You must be a left wing feminist. You must be this. And they move so far in this life. Young from very early on. Right. This is their activism. This is their politics. Before they know before they know very much at all, they've already decided 100% what their politics is and where they stand, and that's going to be what they're expected to go through with the rest of their
But that
life.
changes in life. No, that changes in life. I mean, I can say that for myself anyway.
Well,
I
yes,
mean,
it does. But if, like you, yeah, you stood up against the lib fems and liberal lesbians that may think it's all right for men to call themselves lesbians, and you become isolated. So if you're a lesbian saying that you don't necessarily agree with these different feminist outlooks, or you're not fully on board, or you haven't got the mental capacity to know all the answers to all the questions, you'll quietly go along with things because you don't want to look stupid, because you don't want to be the odd one out in your group. So they don't. There's no. There's little freedom for them to explore for themselves.
no, that the women I think of at the moment are like, yeah, kind of toughish. But what I don't understand is that they say they dislike the situation, and let me think, and then they support something like this Dyke March business, with asterixes, and we
Yeah,
we get attacked as lesbians. I mean, we're not supposed to be there saying lesbians don't have dicks. You can't say that there. You get knocked over.
and
They
it's
whipped
a
you.
dyke march. Yeah,
It's a Dyke March, right?
yeah,
So I can understand, or I've been thinking about this issue for quite a while, because I think I understand the argument that people say, or women say, look, we do it from the inside. We want to reclaim that, and I am in the position now. Well, reclaiming takes a lot of time, and at the moment, the government is planning self ID laws, right? So I have to pick a side because there is no time to discuss that. There is no time to say, oh, we are reclaiming whatever. There's no time left. There is
yeah,
urgency.
yeah.
That's how I feel. And they feel, I think they feel a bit different about it. Like they feel a certain emergency or urgency, but really, they want to do it in a proper way, like no allying with the right. And I don't want right allies. I'm
Who
not looking
does?
for that.
And it's
But
not so much the right. It's the further right. It's
yeah,
it's sort of like the more extreme, somewhat racist, uh, Christian, not always Christian, but that's sort of like that patriarchal version of the right that can be,
yeah.
yeah,
But for them, everybody who's conservative plus
yes,
is too right. So there is this moment of you can't talk to Tucker Carlson or an equivalent in Germany, or not even an equivalent, much milder in their political um, uh, ideas. But you can't to them. If you talk to them, you are lost,
yeah.
and then you're not okay anymore. And it's ridiculous.
But what? So another thing. How many people have I heard being called right wing bigots, Nazis, racists? And then you go and look at the people that people are saying this about, and that our mainstream media say this
Exactly.
stuff about, and you're like, what? How are they right wing? What have they done? What did they say? What did they do? And th- and it's kind of like, so then you start questioning the whole idea of what you're being told about the right and what they're saying. And they're not, what's going on with this is the guilt by association is creating scenarios where if you're on the left, you're crushed into this narrow set of language and behaviors that you're supposed to adhere to, and the right are the ones saying, no, you don't have to adhere to those values and that language. Speak your mind. And the the kind of like the story that the right are putting out is going to be something that people are going to hear. Yeah, I want to speak my mind. Oh, if I speak my mind, the right aren't turning against me. The right aren't calling me all these horrible names uh because I don't want men to be called women, and I don't want women to have to put up with men in their bathrooms. It's the left doing this.
Exactly. But I just been told that hmm, kind of I'm not distancing myself enough from women who are right-ish because they think the right uses us. And as I said, the right is conservative, like max conservative, right? Not
Yeah,
right wingers.
yeah,
So I have no way of communicating. I have to be worried about if I communicate with the person who is um, as a feminist, maybe, or as a woman who thinks about feminism or women, like, and who wants to prevent us from um, this self-ID law. Um, I can't really talk to her. Maybe not even the way well. I have been told that I'm too close to her, that she gets too much space to speak about feminism. But she is a very conservative person, and she has got, well, is like with the migrant, she's got more problems than I do, or different kinds of problems that I have, in a way. So she's kind of too far right for the purists. So now I'm there with the woman who has made a development in the past months that I find incredible. From like um, saying, "Oh, I wasn't sure whether to come to women's spaces because why would women talk to each other?" Kind of, to put it
yeah.
crudely. To oh, I'm quite happy that I'm here, and the men get on my nerves in the other spaces. She goes there, but sometimes she joins us when we're on because she says, "I can't bear them anymore." And she
Yeah.
fights for these spaces, right? So she has gone through a learning phase. Her learning curve is quite amazing. And I am attacked because I let her speak because she is a bit too wide, too,
It's
like
ridiculous.
2 years ago, I would not have talked to her. I admit that. I
Yeah.
have gone because the situation is grave.
Yeah.
If the situation wasn't so grave, I would not.
But it's not just that, our beliefs about the left and about the right
Yeah.
uh, are something that, we're partially indoctrinated into there. This kind
Yeah.
of like, and I, I'm not sure. I imagine sort of like the what's his name in Germany about the right is a bit worse than it is in the UK. Because over here it's all about racism and skinheads, the right, and sort of like anti-immigration and all the rest of it. It's not the normal stuff. But
Oh,
Ger-
right. No, anti-immigration is quite right.
Yeah, but it's kind of like, that's seen as a sort of like, a right wing racist attitude in this country, and that's been the narrative forever. So anyone that has a problem with immigration, it's because they're ignorant racists, and that's
How they're
yeah,
framing it here. Yeah.
yeah, and that's how what's happened is the people that had the less amount of money that needed to be able to rely on the institutions more and like social housing, they've had less access to be able to have social housing, all sorts of other problems, schools, housing going through the roof because we just don't have the houses. And rather than anyone listening to what the people were saying on the ground floor, on the bottom floor of sort of like society, financially, the people that, really do pay the price for the rest of our luxury, the ones that get the least, and they're treated like they're the scummiest, most disgusting people on earth. To me, when Brexit was up and running, I voted to leave Europe because of the way our media and our elites treated the people that tried to talk about the issue of immigration. I was so angry that the, the these people, all these people that have had all these opportunities and all these benefits and have this wonderful language that they can talk about all these lovely things in, and they live these lovely lives, were so dismissive and so disgusted by people that were trying to speak up about what things are like for them. And those people there are angry, so sometimes when they speak, their language isn't pretty and they say mean things. So they've been treated like scumbags. It was no surprise to me that the polls were completely wrong. I said way before the vote, I said people will not tell other people what they're going to vote for, because the people that are going to vote for Brexit are going to be too frightened to tell their family, to tell their friends, to tell journalists and broadcasters who they actually will vote, how they'll vote there. Because the whole of the British society were like completely shocked by the results
Yeah.
there, because they weren't talking to the people, that had the problems on the ground floor, that were struggling. They weren't talking to them. They were just looking down their nose at them, looking for reasons to call them names, looking for reasons why I can ignore that person because they're ill-educated. They are clueless about why this matters. Yeah. Well, those people have lived in those places for 20 and 30 years. They've seen their standards of living fall apart. They've seen their children's education, you know, being too frightened to send your children to school because they're going to get the crap beaten out of them because of violence in schools. Young girls getting assaulted by young lads, and it the, they like I said, the reason in reference to Tommy Robinson, had they been addressing those issues, Tommy Robinson wouldn't have got a look in. He'd still be some plumber that nobody'd ever heard of. But because our institutions were too frightened of being called names, they wouldn't address the problem. That's I don't know what do you call it when the majority of society look down on the people that have the less as their disgusting imbeciles, and their opinions and their experience of what's happened is irrelevant to their futures. What are those people? Who are they? Would you want to would you want to see would you be able to be in this country and imbibe your children with the idea that if you work hard and you do well and you do the right thing, you'll have a good life? Because, well, their parents don't, and the kids can see their parents don't.
Yeah.
And they,
Exactly.
yeah, and the the powers that be want to demonize everything. It's the same as the trans ideology. Yeah, people are trying to speak out about it, and it's all right wing. Everybody's a right winger, and it's just why? It's mean and ridiculous. and it it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart to see our working classes trashed because they're trying to protect something that they think is worth having. You know, a community, people that care about each other, people that want to help each other, and our governments, our mainstream media, our newspapers pit each other for clicks and for advertising, pit each other against each other. Ugh.
Well, I think that they're doing it for quite a while now. I mean, I never wanted to hear that kind of idea. I thought it's an ideology. But really, when I look, I think, the government, whichever government we had, they were not talking about. I mean, especially the so-called left. They're not left, but the
Yeah, the
so-called
pretend
left
left.
and Greens. They how can I put it? Um, they never allowed us to address um, the question and what's happening if many migrants come to Germany, like um, many migrants from Muslim states, right?
Yeah,
You weren't supposed to talk about it. You weren't supposed to say, look, there might be a problem if too many young men uh, go to school, Arabs and like all kinds of people with Muslim background.
yeah.
Um,
Mi-
are
misogynist.
in one school. Yeah, are in one school. We have to talk about it. We've got problems in schools because the guys won't talk to the teachers. They say, you're a woman, you can't tell me anything, and that kind of thing. And of course, not all of them, but it's strictly forbidden. If you don't want to be called a fascist, and this has been
Yeah,
going on for quite a while, you could not challenge that. You could not ask. It's the same like with the trans ideology. You must not rock the boat. And what happens then is that you get like you people who observe that and who are maybe even a bit less happy about foreigners than I am. They would say, okay, get them out of here. And it took me years to dare to say, oh, well, what I'm observing is a bit strange. And I only started recently, like this is one of the first times I talk about it in public, that I think, well, it is difficult. We have to look at it. We
yeah,
have to think about how we get people here who who need help or who just want to live here. How can we do that without having to deal with the problem that I want to get all the women out of Iran and Afghanistan? If you
yeah,
ask me,
yeah.
take them here. All of them. All of them. Take them here. Now. We
But
will
not
work it out.
their men.
No,
But
the
not
men
their
come.
men.
Right?
There's a good saying.
Exactly.
There's a really
So,
good saying. There's a really good saying that I saw someone put out on Twitter, and it's about immigration, especially because over here we've got them coming over in the boats from France, and all these boats are filled of mainly men. And one of the things that people write is, "Can we afford these men?" Um, because it's not just about financially affording these men, but it's the misogyny and the culture that they expect automatically to for women to give way to them. That if women say something against them, it's seen as insolence, as uppity or a woman needing put in her place. And the fact that again, it's been so easy to shut the women down because the irrelevance we apparently hold in society in positions of power. Because if women had been heard in our halls of power, things would have had to change because no one in our halls of power could stand there and say actually, no, Muslim men don't have a problem with German women. Muslim men don't have a problem with English women. Yeah, and someone will say, not all Muslim men, and yeah, piss off, not all men, we know. But the idea that all these men are going to come here and they're just going to slide in and everything's going to be wonderful, they're pretty much, most of them are going to be heterosexual. They're going to want to have sex. And if they don't get what they want, they, from their own country where it's been easier for them to get what they want by throwing their weight around, and they try it over here, and our girls suffer. So it's okay, it doesn't matter, because it's only girls and women. They're irrelevant. And the reason it's so easy for them to say that, because it's not the middle class people with their children going to, although it is starting to affect middle class people, I believe. But the middle class people with their children going to university, generally speaking, the people that get into university, they have at least a reasonable command of behaviour to some degree. And if you're coming from another country outside, you've got to have studied and have some self-control. But the people that are coming here that are coming here illegally, I don't have a problem with legal immigration if we can house and have the resources. I haven't got a problem with that. I have a serious problem with illegal immigration, and I don't want more. I don't want more misogynistic men that are likely. It's going to increase the amount of violence. We've already got enough violence against women. Can we just stop importing more while we get this crap sorted out? And you shouldn't have to feel bad. Why as women, why as lesbians are we frightened to have these conversations? You know,
Yeah, I could tell you. I mean, this is probably what I said in the past 5 minutes might actually be too much.
yeah,
Might
you
actually be too much.
it's all right to cut it back. Cut back out whatever you want. Take all the
No,
right,
no,
take
no,
it.
but you know what? It's
I
not
don't
about
want you
cutting it back. It's
I don't want
no,
you
I
being
know
more
what you mean.
isolated. I don't want you being more isolated when
I
far too deep
am
Berlin
though.
because
I
of our
feel
conversation.
no,
Uh,
no, 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 no. Don't. That's my responsibility anyway. But no, honestly, it is so difficult to talk here, and there are really the purism, and they don't touch the right by any means. Is so. It's almost. I don't know. It's almost oppressive. And it's
religious.
like you can't talk anymore. There is a ban.
Yeah,
You must not talk about certain things in a certain way. You have to. It's basically the same shite as with the trans community. You must not say certain things. You must not think certain things. And if you think them, just don't talk about it. That's how I feel.
yeah.
And
And
I'm not. Uh, I'm not turning to the right. No, I'm not. But it doesn't matter whether I say that or not. People will say, she's saying that. You know what I mean? It's sort of
no,
ridiculous.
well, I've had people sort of like take the attitude that I'm on the right. I don't give a shit whether they think I'm on the right or
Uh,
not. My take
yeah,
is, yeah, that the left, all these people that call themselves left, that point these
yeah,
fingers, the left are turning their back on the
yeah,
people that they're supposed to be supporting and representing.
yeah,
If the left chooses to turn their back on such a large amount of the populace, then it is for that large amount of populace to work out what they do with their votes politically, to think
yeah,
about that power in that way. But of course, we've still got these like the splits within our female union of all women. Yeah, it doesn't matter whether you're a lesbian, doesn't matter whether you're a mother. I don't give a toss. Yeah,
yeah,
what your story is. You are woman. You are born girl,
exactly.
you become woman, you experience the things I experience because we're born girl. Yeah. We're born this way. We experience our life this way because we are women, because we grow as girls. And that 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 coming together for, I mean, this is the first time in my life I've had so many fantastic conversations with women. I've been in
Mm.
group spaces where it's just, it has such a magical, empowering, powerful, goosebumpy feeling of wonderfulness. Yeah, even when people are bloody rowing and all the rest of it, it's still wonderful. And that's new. That's new for me. And and I want to see that grow for all women, irrelevant. I don't care whether the women are on the right. I don't care whether they think abortion is a terrible thing, or they think abortion is the right thing. I don't give a toss about any of that. They're women. What we need is to understand we all suffer these things, and we're women that are also divided by the class divide. Yeah. So within our groups, we've got people that are impoverished and people that are wealthier, but we still agree that we don't want men calling themselves women. And that sort of the difference between people that have and people that don't, and the confidence issues and the issues around language and having a conversation and debate, it's very hard for those two things to coexist in a room where people are looking for the cracks in the union. And if people want to focus on the differences within our union of women, then they aren't getting the message about woman. It doesn't, you've got all these women that sort of like, they're Christian, they're this, that, and the next thing. In the world, in the spaces that they move, they're doing good things and they're good people and they're helping people. They're helping women. They're working their ass off to help women. They have status. They have some money. They may have married well. They may have worked hard. Whatever way it is that they have come to this space where they have the capacity, the time, and the independence to be able to do this. I'm not going to diss how they got where they were. I'm not going to look at them and turn around and say, well, you're a piece of crap because you're on the right. You don't know what it's like to be poor. Yeah, but I'm also never going to turn around and say to someone that comes in effing and blinding and might sound sometimes occasionally semi-racist because they might say a certain thing in the wrong way, because what they're trying to say is they've got a problem with immigration, but they don't know how to say it without sounding like a racist bigot. Because that's another thing. There's no room to have the conversation, no room to learn from each other. How do you bring people together?
Exactly. That's what I was wondering.
Well, it's
Exactly. And
talking.
I
You have,
I
like
did,
your
yeah.
mate, the woman that you weren't going to talk to, but now you do, and you've let her up to talk. Yeah, that's how we come together through not caring about the person's political attitude towards this, that, and the next thing. Let's get to know the people. Let's say about the politics. Yes, their politics matter on the political stage. We have this movement where we want to achieve this. We need their voice. We need them speaking up. And it would be nice if we could get to know who it is that are also standing up. It might turn out that the only thing you disagree on is whether someone should be free to have an abortion up to their last 2 weeks of pregnancy, or abortion should be limited within the first 4 or 5 months. That might be the difference between the two people. Yeah, so my partner and my partner's pro-life and I'm pro-choice. Yeah.
Oh my
So,
goodness. That's
oh yeah, yeah.
difficult, isn't it?
No, no, not at all. She has that opinion, I have this opinion. Neither of us have been affected by the issue. Neither of us have had to go through it, so it's easy for us to have an opinion about it.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And but the other thing is, it's like under certain circumstances, there are times where she would say that abortion is reasonable, incest, rape, um, severe disabilities, those sort of thing. So, okay, so she says she's against abortion and she's pro-life, but actually, the truth is, she's not too far removed from where I am. Yeah, I just think it should be a right for any woman to have an abortion if she so chooses, and the man has no say. So I don't care about the man. Yeah, and his desire to be a father, not interested. It's her body, it's the danger she's putting her body in, it's her choice. And at the end of the day, it's her that will pay the price whether she decides to be a mother or not. So if she has the abortion, she would either walk through life spending an awful lot of her time wishing never to tell anybody because of fear of how she would be treated if people find out she had one. Yeah? Uh, I fail to understand how these divisions and wanting to other Kelly J. Keane is going to benefit any feminism for women as a whole. Because if no feminist shows themselves as capable of supporting the women that do the Kelly J stuff, then when 2 or 3 years down the road from now, depending on how this goes, yeah, it is feasible that feminism will pay the price. Feminist literature, feminist study. You know, in
It
England right
starts
now,
already. It
yeah, in
starts already.
England, it's happened. I think people have turned around and said they want to get rid of these nothing-key degrees like women's studies and gender studies. Yeah, so we're being told gender studies and women's studies are nothing-key. And I'm fairly sure, without some women having studied women's studies and feminism, we certainly wouldn't have the statistical analysis that tells us how badly women get treated in comparison to men, how much of our medical research is based on male bodies, how the design and everything that goes around, it's not based on female studies on science, even on mice populations. They will prefer to not have to deal with females because of the cycle and the hormones or something, and that how much you don't want to do studies including women because you have to deal with the possibility of pregnancy and their menstrual cycle. So it's too expensive and it's too difficult. So we'll do it on whether it's male mice or male rats or men, and we'll take that data from that study and then extrapolate it to women. That's not science. That it's not science. It's speculation. It's pure speculation. And yet I'm supposed to believe that science knows best for me because that's where I've come from. To me, science was everything. Science would find the answers. Science would find the facts, find reality. But our scientists are backing this um, gender rubbish. You know, doctors saying that, or gynecologists saying that yes, men can give birth.
Can you believe it? I mean, that blows your brain, doesn't it?
It makes me want to hit people. Like,
Yeah, I could say that. Yeah.
could you imagine if we took a sort of like a group of like say we picked out 100 people that we've mixed with either through like let's see Let Women Speak, feminist groups, and from Twitter and online and stuff, and we could all get them to go to our various parliaments and have to sit in there with a group of men saying the stuff that they've been saying. How long do you think those men would last against those women? I think if you put a load of ordinary women, yeah, in those with those men would be terrified because our rage would be palpable because we're not just having this done to it's it's the physical reality. but the absolute insult of being irrelevant.
Yeah. It is, yeah. It is an insult. And they don't stop at anything. There's nothing to stop them, I feel, at the moment. I don't know.
But
Is that different in England? In Germany, they're going absolutely insane. They do whatever
yeah,
they want. They write whatever they want.
it is. Well, I think one of the problems again we've got is the fact that young people, generally speaking, don't buy newspapers. So we might get something in the Telegraph or the Daily Mail, yeah, and the Sun occasionally, but those papers aren't really going to be going to the young. Most people are online. They're not necessarily subscribing to these papers. They'll get their information from their social media. So even though we do have it on newspapers printing stuff against it, and news channels aren't. The only news channel that covers it, of course, is GB News. And so we've got a lot of people, again, talk about taking people to the right, because if GB News is the only channel, the only news outlet for the UK that is saying what a lot of people that have, generally speaking, been on the left are saying about transgenderism, about immigration, uh, that these people are going to start to think to themselves, well, perhaps I'm not actually a person, a member of the left. Perhaps really I should be on the right, and I've just been mistaken. And actually, when I'm over on the right, these people agree with me about these issues. So perhaps that means my politics. I'm not. I don't think socialism is a good idea, and I'm better off under the right, because my social outlook is one thing and my economic outlook is another thing. Then, because you can't be on the right with a general desire of socialism for all, and because and I, even saying you're a socialist now is a bit iffy. You know,
They put it all in one box. I don't know. Even that is dangerous
yeah. So
because
and I
they
like,
throw the horseshoe.
but
You
how can
call
I
it.
be a socialist and want borders?
Yeah. So it's crazy. It's crazy. But GB News, is that a rather right-wingish
It
thingy,
is.
or?
Yeah, it is.
Oh, I didn't
It's
even know. I didn't want to know because I like this gay guy.
which one?
Oh, are there more than one?
Oh, you mean Andrew Doyle? I love Andrew
Andrew
Doyle.
Doyle, I love him.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
love Andrew Doyle. Yeah, I think the other one's Dan
yeah.
Wootton.
All right. Okay.
Yeah,
No,
but
yeah,
yeah,
I have heard that name, but I didn't listen to Doyle when I get catch
yeah.
him. And there's this black woman. She looks a bit
Nana a queer.
peculiar. I think.
Nana a queer. Skinny
I
black
don't
woman.
know. Yeah,
Quite skinny, long
she's
dark hair.
yeah, she's got a bit of a wild look about her. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and she has been in an interview with Kelly J, and they were brilliant together. So
Was that
um,
Nana? How long ago was that?
I
Ish.
don't know.
I can't. But I think I might.
What-
I can't remember if she was interviewed by Nana. But Nana's the only black woman I can think of on GB News that's there regularly, and her name's Nana Aquia, and
Oh, I can't. As
she
I
makes me
said,
laugh.
I didn't even remember Andrew Doyle without your assistance. I'm bad with names, but I just know she's a dark skinned. She's dark skinned, has long hair,
Yeah,
and she's got this such a wild energy about her. Like oh yeah, well, she's really like this
she's
doesn't
matter of
work, does it?
fact.
You know,
Yeah,
like yes, exactly. I like that.
yeah, I do.
I don't mean it like nasty. I mean
Well,
wild
she'll
energy,
say
as
to
in
someone,
you
she'll say,
can't go past her.
yeah,
So,
she'll say, someone will say something, and she'll say, well, that's absolute rubbish, isn't it?
yeah. That kind
So bang on.
of, I mean that kind of wild. Yeah, exactly. I like her. It's just, she's a bit unusual. I mean, our German presenters are not like that, so we haven't got any German presenters I can think of who have got anything to say. I mean, honestly, not like her.
It,
So
but is it a case of because of the history that it's actually so much harder, and
mm,
people are so frightened of the sort of like the idea of the
mm,
repeat of history, that
yeah,
any dissent to the left is seen as some sort of like a right wing threat that
yeah,
will lead to which is again sort of like the confusion that goes around with it. So in Germany, it's the fear of speaking up for everyone, especially the politicians and anyone in the media, is magnified in comparison to the UK, because we're not dealing with that. However, the suppression techniques that has been used by the media is racism. So there's different forms of suppression, and I think they're using each country's history. The media and the elites are using every country's history to control the narrative and frighten the populace out of talking about things that they're concerned about, because they are so fearful of finding themselves in this uh, grey, slippery slope area, that suddenly, all of a sudden, they're going to find themselves, oh, I've said something, and now it means that I agree with something that someone said in 1942 about, yeah. Well, that was another thing that really riled me. I was in a room having a row with, or having not having a row, having a discussion, and someone said, Kelly J, or I think it might not have been Kelly, it might have been somebody else, but someone made some. Oh, that was it. One of the things that Kelly was gonna attend, I think it was a Let Women Speak. It might have been in New York. Some woman had used a phrase from a book. It might have been from Mein Kampf, or from something to do with Hitler. And they turned around and said, and she used this phrase from that book or something or other. And then someone said something about, oh yeah, and that one that used this phrase. So I turned around and said, well, I might have used that phrase because I haven't read the bloody books. Does that mean that I now, before I can say any words, after we've read every book, memorized every word, and know all the things I'm not supposed to say, because it'll make me sound like someone else? Because we've had too many books written. You know, I would like. How hard do you think it must be today to write a new unique perspective in a language that hasn't been used, in a way that hasn't been said? So if we're going to repeat
well,
ourselves, it's
most
kind of
likely
like,
not possible, no?
exactly, you can't, look at all the history, look at all the written books, look at everything that's available. Yeah, and point the person out
Mm.
to me that's read all of it, knows all of it, and knows what not to say all the time. Because there isn't that person doesn't exist. It's impossible.
Yeah, but I mean, honestly, I mean, if you have got an education, don't you think that people should know who Adolf Hitler was and that Mein Kampf is not something you quote?
Well, it's like, if you've got an education, well, that depends on where your education comes from and how much. Because another weird thing,
That's true.
how often do you think in my life, yeah, up until the age of 16, that I studied World War Two? I was raised in the military, so how often do you think I studied World War Two?
Probably. I mean, in Germany, you would have been exposed every day, more or less.
Right. Well, I was raised in the
Probably
military.
not.
Not at all.
Probably
Not
not at
once.
all. Yeah,
Not once. Not once. Not in my military
I
education,
can't
not in my
believe it.
civilian education. Yeah, not once. Anything I've learned about World War Two, I've learned since leaving school. Yeah. And I tell you, most people's education about, like, people like me that
Not
didn't have.
even to celebrate
None of it. None of it. Well, let's say the no. Even in the military thing, there was no. They spoke about, oh yeah, it's like a VE Day, yeah, Victory in Europe Day or something like that. And there's these. You'll have the military, but that's a military thing. It's something that's on the telly. We didn't study it. I didn't study it in military school, and I didn't study it in my not once. It was never a conversation even. So my education missed all of that, which is how weird, considering I was educated, you know, growing up in the military. No. And I think you'll find that for my generation, that's probably not that uncommon. For us not to have studied it in our education. And I don't remember our eldest lad studying it either. The younger ones, I'm fairly sure, did, but I don't remember whether I'll have to check with him. So again, I was up until I was 14. I had what I would consider a good education, all in military schools. Then I went to civilian school, and as far as I'm concerned, it was crap. My education ended when I was 14. I left school at 16, and what happened between the ages of 14 and 16, it wasn't education. It was warehousing, fighting, and bunking off school because I wouldn't have sent a dog to that school. It was just pointless waste of time. There was no discipline, no control. Nobody was getting educated there. It was just where you put children to so they don't go roaming the streets. And so I'm quite common. You know, I haven't got this. I did study A-level psychology and sociology in the 90s at college night school for about 6 months. But I've also had sort of like a relative interest in things and, read here and there. But I've never been someone that considers myself in education or studying. I just had interests. And I imagine that I'm relatively common. And although I've got a different sort of like not completely common life experience, but educationally, I don't think, yeah, apart from the fact I had a really good education up until I was 14. I mean, that's unusual now. But my I suppose my academic or educational prowess is not nothing special, nothing, no degree, none of those things. And and that's another thing I think when people make assumptions about what other people should or should not know.
Yeah,
That
that's true.
everybody
Guilty as
that
charged.
everybody knows. Yeah, but everybody knows what the final solution means, yeah? Because that was a word, that was a
Mm-hmm.
phrase, and apparently everybody
Mm-hmm.
knew what that word was. Well, the first time I heard that word, guess what? That phrase, I had no idea what that meant. I didn't know that the phrase, the
Mm-hmm.
final solution, was something that was used. I had no bloody clue about that. And I can pretty much guarantee
Mm-hmm.
you an awful lot of people didn't. So then
Well,
someone
yeah,
will, in
that
the
happened to
media,
me with the
use the
German.
phrase,
Yeah.
oh, really?
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's reasonable to it's reasonable to assume again that
Mm-hmm.
we're not all educated in the same way and have the same experiences. However, despite all those differences, all us women, so many of us, feel exactly the same about protecting women and girls and the problems that we foresee. And the problems that many, with the trans ideology, and I think now because of the trans ideology being forced down our neck, it's giving people also courage to stand up and still not as what's the word, eloquently as some others might need, but to stand up and express their dissatisfaction with levels of illegal immigration and how it affects resources. So those people, when they don't have the eloquence to express that, uh, in a politically correct manner, are going to get shot down again and again because they haven't read those books. It's not that they're saying, I hate this, I hate that, I want this, I want that. Oops. They're saying, this is crushing me. This is crushing me. Help me. Help me. And all of our media, our papers, our elites, they point to those people and say, you bigot, you're disgusting, you're disgraceful. How dare you speak like that? What do those people do? They go quiet, they get angrier, they get angrier, they align with people that speak the words that they feel, and then they end up in a movement that is being led by people that we are concerned about. For instance, let's say, I mean, I don't know
Farage.
too. Yeah, well, let's say Farage. I mean, I don't know too much about the man. All I know about the man is what I've been told by our media. Yeah.
All
So
right.
again,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's like by them being like that about everybody and calling everyone right-wing bigots, racists. What they've done is they've taken the whatever it was off of Nigel Farage and said, okay, so if I'm a right-wing bigot because I think that, does that mean I'm the same as Nigel Farage? So I go and look and see what he is saying, and then I'm think, well, I think that. Well, I think that. Oh, so I'm on the right there because you know. I never used to know what the left meant, what the right meant, and the sort of like, and I don't know wholeheartedly all about it now. I've just got my life experience and what I've seen with my own eyes and what I've seen with other people and the few bits and pieces. And I listen to quite a few audio books because I've got terrible eyesight. Yeah, have you got Andrew Doyle's book?
No, I
He's
haven't
got a
read it.
couple,
All
but
right.
it's good on
Oh no, I
audio.
haven't.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
I've
I
got
love
Amazon.
audio books. Yeah, I
Yeah,
love
I've got
audio books.
Amazon, or I do, and I that's another thing. It's like now when I buy a book. Before I just used to buy a book on the fact that I read the intro, listened to a sample, and read some of the what do you call it? The comments. Now when I read a book, it's like, okay, so am I going to read this author and he's going to turn out to be some sort of like far right person, or am I, or is this person going to be one of those idiots from the left that think that men can be women? I've never had to do that before. I've never had to look into that sort of thing. I've just been able to be free to, listen to someone else. Now I'm like, I feel that disinclined to listen to stuff from the left because I don't want to have to listen to anything about trans ideology.
Hmm.
So,
I listened to a, I listened to an audiobook the other day, and it was gendered. I thought, oh, I can't bear listening to it.
who was
You
it?
know, in
It was,
German we have the. Oh, it was some
oh
German
my
author,
God.
and it was a crime story. And you had
How does it
they
work
were
with the
sticking
language?
the. Yeah, in German anyway. In German we say, okay, um, you have got
I know.
doctor, right?
Yeah, I know
And
about
we've got,
the.
yeah, exactly. So
Yeah,
Ärztinnen. Er ging zu den StudentInnen, uh, like that. They were talking like that, and I was like, oh, I couldn't listen to that book. I couldn't finish it.
exactly, exactly. And that's anything that is sort of like, as soon as I hear anything like that, I'm like, nope, can't bear to listen to it. And the thing is, before I realised what was going on, I'd listened to a couple of books, and there was I can't remember what it was, but there was it was I think it was a fantasy book. I'm not sure. These sort of like sci-fi type fantasies,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't like sexually explicit anything. I don't like sexually explicit films. I don't like sexually explicit language and innuendo and all that sort of thing.
I don't.
And this book, it was, it was a nice book, but the storyline had somebody in it that was male, I think they were, or I can't remember, they're female but presented as male, and it was sort of like it was trans-ish, but I didn't use the language and it presented it in a different way. And I really enjoyed the story and all the rest of it. Great book. But now I wouldn't be able to listen to it. I would hate it. That's what they've done. Their behaviour, and it no. But how many of us feel like this is one of the things that keeps going on in spaces? The I don't know what the right word is. Uh, Despondency. That's the wrong word. I can't even find the right word.
I don't even know that word. Despondence.
When someone is
Despondency.
despondent, they don't even bother engaging because it's pretty pointless.
Oh, despondent. Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
makes
I
sense.
said despondency. I said sort of like that level of
Yeah.
despondency, but it's despondent. That
Oh,
And it's not even the right word. I think. I mean, what? There's another word. Disenfranchised.
all right.
When you have no stake,
Yeah.
you have no say. Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's yeah. You've got no stake, and it is the irrelevance again. We'll go back to the irrelevance of women's words. Did I hear you say you've got a grown child?
Hi. No, you didn't hear me say that because I have. I'm not a mother. No,
I don't know why. In my head, I thought you raised a kid.
I
Or
don't
you?
know.
I don't know. Don't know why that was in my head. There you
Weird.
go.
Yeah, because I
Oh,
said when I
obviously, I
was
know why. Because you're down to
yeah.
earth and you're down to earth and you're straight. You're quite straight about your talking. You're not all decorative. It could be that I just thought you had that sort of like you've got you can be direct. You don't have to dance around the houses. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Because I hear
but I.
mums are often like that. And older mums are often very much quite direct. They sort of like they've dealt with all that stuff. And
Well, if
yeah,
anything, I'm my mother. I am mummying myself
yeah,
because that's where I got. Yeah, I'm alone. Nobody loves me. I mean, not in that
everybody
way.
loves you.
No, well, yeah, maybe Spikey. You know what I mean, though.
Yeah,
I
I
mean, there
know.
is no partner or anything around, and unfortunately, because my heart is still kind of
Yeah,
given away, but it doesn't work out. So I have to,
and that's another thing. Fucking
ah,
being sick.
that's exactly. I
Yeah,
being old, and being only. I'm only.
yeah,
I'm lonely.
a-
No,
and being a
alone.
lesbian, and it's kind of like yeah,
Exactly.
it's so easy to go and date these
And
days,
it's
isn't
like
it?
I could just drop dead and nobody would notice. I mean, now people would notice because I wouldn't be there on Thursdays doing my talks. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
it's really really weird. That's not how I thought I would end, like in
yeah.
my life.
I don't
I mean,
think
it
you
hasn't
will.
ended quite yet, but
I
you
don't think
know,
you will. I think there's more chapters with you yet.
I
And
don't know.
well, never say never, because like
No, but
I raised 7 kids. There was no way I was going to raise more than two. Yeah, never say never.
yeah, okay,
But I do.
yeah, but
It's the isolation we feel as well. I think, because it's like
yeah,
I am with my partner, and I know that I'm extremely lucky. But I was saying to my partner that I think it was the day before yesterday that if anything does happen to me, you must go on my Twitter and let people know.
yeah.
Because one, it'd feel rude not to let you know. If there was a place after death, I'd be turning over, going it. Look, you got to tell people. It's just rude. Yeah, but also I kind of like
Yeah, you can't just disappear.
yeah, yeah. It's kind of like and sort of like caring about people wondering what happened and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's I think it's much harder for lesbians because it's not like we can just go to the local pub to meet friends. And I mean, in Berlin, they might have a little bit more of a social life with lesbians than you would sort of like further out in the rural areas. Is it?
our last, our last bastion has disappeared just now. The last women's focused. The last woman's cafe, bar, whatever, name it, has just, uh, how do you call it,
Gone
made
trans?
clear. Yeah,
Yeah,
they
that's
are allowed in, and you have to deal with it. You have to deal with it. Is the lesbians have to deal with it? If they don't want to come, then that's it.
yeah,
So the last bar is lost.
yeah, and it's not already hard
There's
enough.
nothing left. There's nothing left now. It's sickening. It's
Especially
sickening. I've
because
been fighting.
there was a high life. There was a period of time where there was a high life, and you could go into a bar, and there was like I remember going to a pub that was it was LGB night, but I also remember there were women's nights. And once a month, somewhere I can't remember what it was, there was a women's night, and it was sort of like some back room in the back of a pub somewhere, but it was just for
Hmm.
lesbians, and it didn't say lesbians only; it just said women only there.
Exactly, and that was sufficient.
Yeah, that was all you had to do. And then I think then probably what happened that you had to put lesbian only, and if you put lesbian on anything, you attract pervert men like no tomorrow.
That's true.
That's in the 90s, sort of like in the 90s, the 80s and 90s, men's attitude was yeah, the only reason you're a lesbian is because you haven't slept with the right man.
Well, I
And
would put it differently, but that's exactly it.
yeah, and that was men's attitude. And then nowadays you get the left wing men that they'll find out you're a lesbian, you'll be in a conversation, and within 5 minutes, perhaps 10 if you're lucky, minutes of them realizing you're a lesbian, they'll start talking
Hmm.
to you about the Kama Sutra, um, and about how how important it is for them, and when they have sex with their partners, for their partners to feel, and they're desperate to tell you how if you basically what they're trying to tell you, yeah, but if you slept with me, it would be different, but they're just saying it a
Yeah,
different way, yeah, and
yeah.
they're left wing men, and it's just as soon as whenever it's happened, I'm like, well, you can imagine what my language is like.
Hmm. There comes the C word.
Well, that's not when the C word comes out. The language.
That's even worse.
No, 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 no. That that that's when my language and my words come out in such a way that if the man still has skin attached to his face afterwards, he's lucky and not pleasant.
Okay.
When men pee
Uh,
me off, it's bad. And
okay. Now, it's good to hear that there are women like that. I mean, I'm sorry. I am. I try to, but I'm not as wild as you think I am. You, plural, even people who listen to me. I can be quite wild, but I wish I could do that kind of thing, like shout at people and say, stop it. I hardly ever do that.
I haven't, I haven't, I, I can do it. It's not something I ever plan or want to do.
Mm.
And when it does happen, and it's funny actually, because I used to think about my mum like this when she did that to men.
Yeah.
When it does happen, I'm often surprised at how hard and how harsh I was, and I'm also surprised at how much the man backed off and sort of like was just desperate to get away, absolutely
Yeah.
desperate to go hide somewhere. Because I there's no nuance, there's no anything. It's go for the jugular, tell them how ridiculous they are, but with sort of like many peppered words. And before, I used to have patience. I used to be able to say to them things like, "Do you know what an effing idiot you sound like?" Do you
Uh,
know what it sounds like to women like me that we have to listen to that crap from idiots like you, and it makes all men look, you know? So that was my kind of like that's my polite version. That's me being
okay.
that's my polite version, okay?
Okay. Oh, I had an incident. Oh God, yeah, I know. Oh, I just had a flashback to some incident the other day. Well, anyway, so that's the polite version. So we don't want to know what your impolite version is.
Yeah.
I'm not. Yeah, I sometimes when I hear women like you, there are some women who are like this outspoken and have a clear message, and they said, what, stop this business. And I want to think about myself like that, but I don't know. I think I'm much too nice still. But I'm learning. I'm learning.
But I was a rebellious tomboy. Always there was. I could play the part of good little girl when my mum gave me no options, if you like, and I knew that if I didn't play the part of good little girl, I was going to pay for it, and I would, be grounded for a
Mm.
month. Or the other punishment I got was grounded for a month, and I had to wear a skirt to school. That was when I was like 14 or 15. For a month, I had to wear a skirt to school. That was
Oh,
a punishment, yeah.
well, they didn't call
So
it
that,
punishment, but I had to wear skirts. I had to wear skirts at school because I'm, after all, a lady, a girl.
yeah, school
And what
uniform.
would people think? No, 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 we
Oh,
don't have school
oh
uniforms.
yeah, you
I could
don't.
have gone in jeans. No, no. My parents insisted, or rather, my stepfather insisted that I wear a skirt to school because, after all, I'm a
You're a
girl.
young lady. Yes.
Yeah,
Well,
and I hated it.
yeah, all my school life I had to wear skirt to school because it was uniform. But in the last 2 years, between the ages of 14 and 16,
Mm.
I went to a civilian school, and they were allowed to wear trousers. I don't know whether we went on strike so they were allowed to wear trousers. I think there was some sort of like, I can't remember, where we all sat on the field and refused to go in. I don't know whether we changed the rules or whatever. I can't remember, but I was allowed to wear trousers. And so yeah, the worst, one of the worst things. My mum could have smacked me. She could have hit me. She could have taken my bike away from me. She could have done all sorts of things to me. It wouldn't have made me behave. But forcing me to wear a skirt and that being my punishment, I would do anything to avoid that. So as horrible as it was, it kind of like made me wind my neck in a little bit for a month. But yeah, it's- but I mean, imagine
But
that
you know,
first time I'm allowed to wear trousers and I get bloody punished out and I have to wear a skirt. Oh,
mm,
infuriating.
yeah, no, no, but I mean, there were schoolgirls in my school who were not supposed to wear a certain blouse or whatever. So they put on the jumper, brought the blouse in their bag, changed during the day, and changed back into the jumper when they
Uh,
got home, when they went home, right? I
yeah.
could have done that. I could easily have taken a pair of jeans with me. No, I'm so law obedient that I didn't even think of it. I didn't even think it. And now, at the age of 60, I think, or 61, I think, why didn't I? What stopped me?
I did from the age of probably from 5 or 6. What I do is on my way to school because we had school uniform, but we also had PE kit, and my PE kit was shorts and a t-shirt, and I didn't mind wearing the jumper and the blouse, but I hated wearing the skirt. So often what I do is, I mind you, sometimes I put the t-shirt on, but I'd put my shorts on and take my skirt off and have my friends standing round me so I could get changed before I went into school. This was from sort of like 5, 6 years onwards. Yeah, so if I could, but then when I went to schools where it was like you had to wear a skirt and they'd pick you out, when you were younger, you could get away with that. But as you get older, for 6 months I went to an all-girls school as well, and I didn't have one single fight in that school. Not one. No. There was bitchiness. There was, I was quite good at sports, so whenever I changed schools, there was always a bit of hoo-ha between the various people on the school teams because I was somebody that was nearly always included on the school sports teams. So if when I went to a new school, it wasn't unusual for me to end up getting someone else's place on a sports team for quite a few sports. So it kind of like it put me in a position where I peed a few people off. And so I had some sort of like bitchy behaviour from that, but not a single fight. And I was at that school for 6 months while my father was doing his coming out of the army and doing some retraining. And I went from there to this civilian school, the one that was terrible education and the one that was awful. And in that school, I'd been there. I can't remember if it was 9 months or longer, or but I'd had like it was either 6 fights or 9 fights. I can't remember, and it was something to do with either 9 months or 18. But I'd had all these fights, and yeah, my mum came into the school because she'd been called in because of my behaviour, and the teacher said it's the way she walks.
The way you walk.
It's the way she walks. Yeah, because what they meant was that I walked round the way I was raised
Hmm.
to make say hi, make eye contact, hold your shoulders back, you know,
Yeah,
confident. I didn't know it was
yeah.
confident. I didn't know I was showing confidence. I was doing
Mm.
what I was walking the way, you know, everybody walked in the schools I went to, which was, just walking along normally, but you'd make eye contact, nod, say hello, whatever. And that was
Hmm.
some signal of cockiness
Right.
to
Yeah,
these
Hawkins
people.
aggression, no? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So then people would
Ah.
start bullying me because they'd see me as cocky. And
Mm-hmm.
in the military, when you're growing up there, if the rules are that you don't start a fight, yeah? If somebody hits
Mm-hmm.
you, you can hammer the crap out of them, but you do not start a fight. But if
Okay.
someone has got the audacity to lay hands on you, push you, shove you,
Mm-hmm.
thump you, you can go hell for leather and beat the crap out of them. That's the rules in the military.
Yeah.
So that was my
Okay.
normal standing, my normal pace. So when these people would come up to me and use their hands and shove me either side, I'd go into fight mode there and I'd fight because that's what you did. That was how it had always been. There wasn't all this in the military. There wasn't all this namby-pamby pushing each other around and backwards and forwards in. You laid your hands on someone, you pushed someone, shoved them, you were in a fight. You weren't negotiating with each other anymore, you were having a fight. And to me, it was like civilians, the kids in the schools, had this whole other thing where they would sort of like physically intimidate and bully, and somehow you're supposed to just accept that as normal. And so I'd fight one person about it, and then someone would hear that, oh, I'm so cocky and gobby, and then there'd be another bloody fight. So it was just, and it was like you can see why. This is the school I bunked off on. It was close to London, and I literally I'd bunk off school and go to the London museums, the Natural History Museum, the Science Museum, all these museums. That was what I did when I bunked off school. My school was so crap that I went to museums in because it was all free in back then. The museums. I'd go to London and go to the museums because
A young person who does that is really in need, hey? I
yeah,
mean,
exactly. I'm such a
or very
dork.
interested, you know.
What a dork. What did you do when you bunked off school? Oh, I went to the Natural History Museum.
I didn't bunk off school. I
Wow.
just didn't. Yeah, wow. I think I did once with one of those. You shouldn't play with that with her. She's bad news. Um, we were 16 or so, Uh, 15, 16. I think yeah, once or so. I can't even remember what we did because I was so nervous. that I thought, oh, I'm doing something so illegal, so wrong. You must not leave school before the school's over. And I never did it again. I don't think. I
I,
never, I never fiddled. I never fiddled. Like in a what's it called? Test. I did not want any, like information written on some little
no,
piece of paper. Nothing. I did
I
all that
didn't.
by myself. I
Yeah,
couldn't.
I couldn't cheat. Yeah, it just.
I can't cheat.
I want to
I,
know.
I, I just,
I want to know the truth.
yeah.
If I'm,
How
if I,
how
yeah,
am I doing it? Am I good or am I bad? If I'm bad,
yes,
I have to learn more.
yes, exactly.
Easy.
Yeah, cheating just complicates it.
Exactly.
It's like,
You
what's the
don't
point?
know what's right or what's wrong. Exactly. So I mean, no, and it makes you lazy. Cheating makes you lazy.
It,
It's so
it,
weird. I never wanted to do that.
it was unusual. It's something that I don't really remember happening very often at school. In the crappy school I went to, I think it happened a bit there. But in the military schools, I don't think I ever remember anyone even getting caught for cheating. But I remember there was a bit of cheating in the civvy school. But I didn't, like I said, I wasn't interested in the school. I knew it was rubbish, and I spent as little time there as I had to. I still did all right in my back then. It was CSEs, not brilliantly, but I got math and English. I can't remember if it was B and an A or two Bs, and the rest of them I couldn't care less about. And as far as I had to put virtually no effort into it and didn't do any revision and had spent so little time at school in the previous 6 months, and I still got those grades. So it's like, what was the point of I'm glad I didn't bother going. They would have uneducated me had I stayed there.
Okay. Okay. I see.
But again, that's because our schools, when we were at school in Germany, particularly our military schools in Germany, were so well funded. The equipment,
Yeah.
the books, everything. It was fantastic. And you come back to the
Mhm.
UK, you go to an English civilian school, and the resources are crap. The everything they've got is just
That's
junk. It's
amazing,
just
isn't
for
it?
yeah.
That's
And
that,
this
that's
is why
amazing. I mean, it's for the same people. I mean, it's for
yeah
you people.
yeah. But that's exactly it. It's why can't we can do this for our soldiers' families and their children, yeah, but we can't do it for the population as a whole. And I think it's why I have all these thoughts that I have in reference to what I've seen, what can be done, and you know, what I've seen happen with women when the men go away, and you know, it's magical women working together. And yes, they still argue, they still piss each other off, there's still a bit of backbiting, but that will happen as where women feel they have to compete for male attention. There, that will
Yeah.
happen. I Girls need to recognize, and what I grew up understanding was that I didn't compete for male attention. They competed for mine. Yeah, that was what was considered standard norm. That it was the men that had to compete because it was the women that had everything they wanted. So, if a man was crap, you turned him down. Yeah, if he was rude, if he was obnoxious or he was smelly, he wasn't going to get anywhere. And it's like girls, I feel that girls to some degree today have not understood the dynamic that men are idiots. And whether they're intelligent men, and some of them have a lot more self-control, but generally speaking, when it comes to sex, most men are fairly stupid. And they will be led around by what that thing points at. And especially young men. And girls not knowing this is like, how is it you don't know this about men? Why is it I knew that back when I was growing up and I knew that about men, but why is it girls today don't know that? Why is it they think they have to go to such great lengths with the makeup and the you know, it's like the what's his name? And I'm not saying this about all bisexual women, but one thing I thought I saw happen in my time was women that were trying to I don't know whether it's they're competing for male attention just for that, or whether they're competing with other women to show their prowess as a woman that other men would want. Because it's that like women suddenly putting bisexual straight women, heterosexual women that have only ever had heterosexual relationships would be putting bisexual in their profile, or saying they're bisexual. And I'd look at some of these women, I'd think, well, hold on, I've known you for ages. Why are you suddenly saying you're bisexual? What does that mean? And it's I think it's to signify to men that they're sexually adventurous, and to make themselves look more. And perhaps it's changed today. Perhaps it's kind of like seen as sophisticated.
Yeah. And then we had technical issues, which means the recording has been interrupted and we didn't pick up from there. So I'm very sorry that it ended here, like without a proper ending. But I'm very grateful for the talk with Spikey that I loved very much. And I hope she will come back at some point and tell us more about her life, maybe, and her thoughts. And you can listen to her anytime in Spaces. We do World Spaces where she's my co-host, and she's in several other spaces as co-host or as speaker. So look out for her on Twitter. And thank you very much. And to the next time, bye.